What the hell do you do when death looks at your newborn son and says, "Nah, I'm good"? Minato didn't know either. Nobody did. Because Naruto Uzumaki wasn't supposed to exist here. He was supposed to be everywhere. And somehow, that's even scarier.
The night the nine-tailed fox attacked Konoha, the sky turned red. Not sunset red, not fire red. The kind of red that makes your bones understand on a level deeper than thought. That something has gone cosmically, fundamentally wrong. Minato Namikaze stood on the back of Gamabunta, his white cloak whipping behind him, and he knew he was going to die. He'd made peace with it. The Reaper Death Seal was absolute. You summon death, you offer your soul, and in exchange, the target gets sealed away forever. That was the deal. No negotiation, no loopholes. His wife, Kushina, was dying on the altar behind him. Her red hair spilled across the stone like blood. Chains of golden chakra still flickering from her body as she held the nine tails in place with the last scraps of her strength. And between them, on the ritual cloth, wrapped in a blanket that Kushina had sewn herself 3 months ago because she insisted store-bought blankets were not good enough for my baby, was their son, Naruto. Minato bit his thumb, drew the blood seal, slammed his palm down and called the Reaper. It came. The Shinigami materialized behind Minato like a wound in the fabric of existence. Enormous, pale. Its face was a mask of pure hunger. Its arm already extending through Minato's chest, reaching for the screaming fox demon that thrashed against Kushina's chains with enough force to crack mountains. The plan was simple. The Reaper grabs the nine tails, seals it inside Naruto. Minato dies. Kushina dies. Naruto grows up a hero, or at least that was the hope. The Reaper's spectral hand shot forward. It passed through reality like a knife through smoke, crossing the distance between Minato and the nine tails in an instant. Its fingers, each one longer than a human body, closed around the fox's chakra and began to pull. Then it stopped, not slowed, stopped, like a movie hitting pause. Minato felt the Reaper's presence shudder. He'd never felt anything like it. The Shinigami, the literal, actual, cosmic embodiment of death, shuddered. Its hand, still buried in the air between dimensions, began to pull back, not toward the fox, away from the baby. What? Minato started. The Reaper looked down at Naruto, and Naruto looked up at the Reaper. The baby wasn't crying anymore. His blue eyes were open, wide and clear, and they were looking directly at the Shinigami with an expression that no infant should be capable of making. It wasn't fear. It wasn't confusion. It was recognition. The kind of look you give someone you've met before. Someone beneath you. The Reaper withdrew its hand from Minato's chest. Minato gasped, stumbling forward, clutching his stomach. The seal, the Reaper Death Seal, was dissolving. The contract was breaking. Not because Minato canceled it, because the Reaper was refusing. Death itself was refusing to do business here. The Shinigami turned. Its massive, hollow eyes swept across the battlefield one final time. Then it sank back into the void it came from, with a speed that looked, to everyone present, exactly like running away. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, standing 200 meters back with a squad of Anbu, watched the Shinigami retreat. In 68 years of life, through 3 wars, through watching his students become legends and monsters, through burying more people than he could remember, he had never seen anything make his blood go this cold. Lord Third, one of the Anbu whispered. Did the Reaper just? Yes, Hiruzen said quietly. The nine-tailed fox was still raging. Kushina's chains were failing. Minato was on his knees, alive when he should have been dead, staring at his own hands like he didn't understand why they still existed. And then the baby made a sound. Not a cry, a coo, a soft, curious little noise, like a child seeing a butterfly for the first time. The nine tails heard it. Every shinobi on the battlefield felt what happened next. The fox, 9 stories of hatred and fire and world-ending fury, turned its massive head toward the altar where Naruto lay. Its 9 tails, each one capable of flattening a mountain range, went still, its red eyes, burning with centuries of rage and pain, locked onto the infant. And the rage stopped. Not faded, not diminished. Stopped. Like someone flipped a switch. The 9-tailed fox, the most powerful tailed beast in existence, a creature that had been sealed and weaponized and tortured across generations, a demon so full of hatred that its very chakra was poison, sat down. in the middle of a burning village, like a dog that just heard its owner's whistle. Then it started shrinking. Minato watched, jaw hanging open as the nine tails compressed. Its body folded inward, its tails curling, its form collapsing like a star going supernova in reverse. Smaller and smaller and smaller. The chakra didn't dissipate, it concentrated. It flowed, like water finding a drain, directly toward the baby on the altar. The fox's enormous body dissolved into a river of orange-red energy that spiraled through the air in a beautiful, terrifying helix and poured into Naruto's tiny chest. Not sealed, not trapped behind bars or locks or 8-point arrays. Absorbed, consumed, taken in the way an ocean takes in a raindrop, the baby giggled. Kushina, bleeding and barely conscious, watched her son absorb the most powerful demon in existence and laugh about it. "Minato," she whispered. "What is our son?" Minato didn't answer. He couldn't. He picked up Naruto, held him close, and looked into those blue eyes. For one fraction of a second, so fast he almost convinced himself he imagined it, the blue flickered to white. Not chakra white, not jutsu white, the white of something so vast and so old that color itself hadn't been invented when it first opened its eyes. Then the baby yawned, nuzzled into his father's chest, and fell asleep. Kushina died 11 minutes later, smiling, holding Minato's hand. Minato survived. The village survived. The nine tails was gone, not sealed, not contained, just gone, like it had never existed. And nobody knew what to do with that. Here's the thing about Konoha in the years after the Nine Tails attack. It should have been a time of grief, of rebuilding, of the slow, grinding work of putting a village back together. And it was, for everyone except the people who had to deal with Naruto Uzumaki, Minato, who remained the fourth Hokage and was very much not dead, which confused the hell out of the village elders who had already started arguing about his successor, tried to raise his son normally. He really did. He read the parenting books. He baby-proofed the house. He hired a nanny. The nanny quit after 3 days because Naruto levitated himself out of his crib, floated to the kitchen, and reassembled the molecular structure of his formula into chocolate milk. He was 7 months old. By age 2, Naruto could speak in complete sentences. Not baby sentences. Complete, grammatically perfect sentences that occasionally reference concepts that hadn't been discovered yet. "Father," 2-year-old Naruto said one morning over breakfast, wearing a tiny white jumpsuit he had materialized himself because he found the orange one Minato bought aesthetically unfortunate. Why do people eat food when they could simply convert ambient energy into caloric sustenance? Minato stared at his son for a long time. "Because ramen tastes good, Naruto." Naruto considered this. Acceptable reasoning. Minato loved his son. He loved him desperately and completely, and with the kind of fierce, terrified devotion that comes from knowing your child could accidentally unmake reality if he sneezed too hard. But Minato was also increasingly aware that he was not parenting a child. He was cohabitating with something that had chosen to be a child. And there is a difference. Hiruzen, who had retaken the advisory role since Minato was alive, visited often. He brought toys. Naruto would thank him politely, then transmute the toys into more interesting things. A stuffed bear became a living bear cub that followed Naruto around for a week before Naruto got bored and turned it into a hat. A set of building blocks became a scale model of the Milky Way galaxy that floated in Naruto's bedroom and was accurate down to the asteroid belts. "He's a good boy," Hiruzen told Minato one evening, smoking his pipe on the porch while they watched 4-year-old Naruto in the backyard, having a conversation with a tree. The tree was answering. "He's polite, he's curious, he's kind, in his way. He turned the neighbor's cat inside out yesterday," Minato said. "Did he turn it back?" "Yes, but the cat won't stop screaming." Hiruzen puffed his pipe. "Children make mistakes." He also healed Mrs. Tanaka's arthritis by touching her hand, cured 3 cases of the common cold by walking past the hospital, and accidentally caused every flower in the Yamanaka shop to bloom at once, including the ones that were dead. See? Good boy. The village didn't hate Naruto. That's what made it different from canon. In canon, they hated the Jinchuriki, the demon container, the reminder of their worst night. But there was no Jinchuriki. The Nine Tails was just gone. Naruto hadn't contained it. He'd eaten it like a snack. There was nothing to hate. What there was fear. Not the kind of fear that makes people throw rocks or whisper behind your back. The deeper kind. The primal kind. The kind that makes a deer freeze when it smells a wolf, even though it can't see the wolf, even though the wolf might not be there. Every person in Konoha, from the oldest jonin to the youngest civilian child, felt it when Naruto walked by. A wrongness. A weight, like gravity got heavier for just a second. Like the air forgot how to air. People were polite to Naruto. Extremely polite. The kind of polite you are to something you don't understand but suspect could end you without effort. Shopkeepers gave him free things, not out of love, out of the desperate, instinctual need to not be on this child's bad side. Naruto found this confusing. Why did the ramen man give me extra pork? He asked Minato once. Because he's nice. His cortisol levels spike every time I enter his establishment. That is not the biochemical signature of niceness. That is terror. Minato sighed. Just eat your ramen, son. Naruto ate his ramen. He ate a lot of ramen. It was, as far as anyone could tell, the one genuinely human thing about him. He loved ramen the way normal people love ramen, messily, enthusiastically, with total abandon. It was the one time his cosmic detachment cracked, and you could see something that looked almost like a regular kid underneath. Tochi, the ramen shop owner, eventually got used to the existential dread. He even started to like the kid. He tips well, Tochi told his daughter Ayame, and he's never once tried to skip on a bill. Dad, he turned his chopsticks into gold last week. Like I said, tips well. When Naruto turned 5, Minato sat him down for a conversation. Son, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. I am always honest. Deception requires a motivation I do not possess. What are you? Naruto looked at his father. Those blue eyes clear and deep and ancient. And for just a moment, Minato saw it again, the flicker of white. The vastness behind the child's face. I was everything, Naruto said simply. An entire reality. Complete and infinite and utterly perfectly alone. I had no edges, no boundaries, no others. Just me. Forever. And then I became aware that there were other realities. Other beings. Beings who wanted things. Who needed things. Who hurt and loved and fought and died. And I realized that I had never wanted anything. I had never needed. I had never hurt. He paused, tilted his head. I found that unacceptable. So I compressed myself into a shape that could experience desire, a body, a life. I chose this world because it was loud and messy and full of contradictions. I chose you and Mom because... He trailed off. For the first time in his life, Naruto Uzumaki looked like he was searching for a word he didn't have. Because you felt warm, Minato cried. Not because he was scared. He was, but that wasn't why. He cried because his son, this cosmic entity wearing his dead wife's eyes, had just told him he chose to exist because he wanted to understand what it felt like to need someone. And that was the loneliest thing Minato had ever heard. He hugged his son. Naruto hugged him back. Carefully, the way you hold something fragile when you know you could crush it without thinking. I do not fully understand this action, Naruto said, muffled against Minato's chest, but I find it adequate. Minato laughed through his tears. It's called a hug, Naruto. I know what it's called. I don't know what it means. You will. Inside Naruto's mind, or rather, in the vast, dimensionless space that Naruto's consciousness occupied, which happened to have a small corner furnished like a sewer, because that's what the Nine Tails expected. Kurama was having the worst day of his eternal existence. He had tried, when he first woke up inside this body, to assert dominance. He was the nine-tailed fox, the strongest tailed beast, a creature of pure chakra and ancient fury. He had roared. He had slammed against the walls of his cage. He had threatened and cursed and promised destruction. Naruto had looked at him and said, "Oh, a pet. Hello." Kurama had raged for 3 solid days. Then Naruto, apparently bored with the noise, had shown Kurama what he actually was. Not told, shown. He opened a door in his mind that led to the truth, and Kurama looked through it. He saw everything, not metaphorically, everything. Every universe, every timeline. Every particle of every atom of every star that had ever burned or would ever burn across an infinity of realities. He saw the scope of existence, the full, incomprehensible scale of the cosmos, and he saw that every single bit of it, all of it, was a fraction of what Naruto had been before he chose to be small. Kurama closed the door very quickly. He sat down in his cage. He didn't speak for a month. When he finally did, His voice was very, very quiet. "So, what do you want from me?" "Company," Naruto said. "It is lonely being everything. You could make friends. Friends are an arrangement between equals. There are no equals." Kurama stared at him. "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard, and I'm a demon made of hate." "Yes, I thought you might understand." From that day forward, Kurama became the most reluctant, most terrified, most oddly protective companion in the history of tailed beasts. He didn't try to take over. He didn't try to corrupt. He just talked to the kid, gave him commentary, told him stories about the Sage of Six Paths in the old world. And every now and then, when Naruto said something so cosmically detached that it made Kurama's fur stand on end, the fox would mutter, "Try saying it like a normal person." And Naruto would try, and it would come out slightly less alien, and that was progress. At age 6, Minato enrolled Naruto in the Ninja Academy. Not because Naruto needed to learn anything, but because Minato hoped, desperately, stubbornly, against all evidence, that being around other kids might teach his son the one thing that infinite power couldn't: how to be human. The academy did not know what hit it. Day 1, Iruka Umino, the instructor, was doing roll call. Naruto Uzumaki? Present. Iruka looked up. A blonde kid in a white jumpsuit sat in the back row. Blue eyes, calm expression. Something about him made Iruka's hand shake slightly. He didn't know why. "Nice to have you, Naruto. Now today we'll be covering basic chakra theory. Chakra is the combination of physical energy from the body's cells and spiritual energy gained through training and experience. When these two energies are combined, they can be molded and released through hand seals to perform jutsu. The system was established by Hagoromo Otsutsuki after he received chakra from his mother, Kaguya, who consumed the fruit of the god tree. The current understanding of chakra networks is approximately 63% accurate. Shall I correct the remaining 37%? Dead silence. Every kid in the class turned to stare at Naruto. Iruka blinked again. "That's very thorough, Naruto. Why don't we let the lesson proceed naturally?" "As you wish." Naruto sat quietly through the rest of the lesson. He didn't disrupt. He didn't show off. He just observed. He watched the other children with those blue eyes, cataloging them, studying their reactions, their behaviors, their tiny social dramas. Kiba Inuzuka's dog, Akamaru, refused to enter the classroom while Naruto was in it. Just planted his feet at the door and whined. Kiba had to carry him to his seat, and Akamaru buried himself inside Kiba's jacket and didn't come out until lunch. Shino Aburame's insects went completely silent. The Kikaichu beetles, which normally buzzed faintly in their host's body, stopped moving entirely. Shino sat through the first class in absolute stillness, then approached Naruto at lunch. "My insects fear you," Shino said. Blunt, direct. The Aburame way. Naruto tilted his head. "Insects operate on instinct. They perceive reality more honestly than humans. Your insects are correct to be cautious. Should I be cautious? You should be whatever you decide to be. I find free will fascinating." Shino considered this, nodded once, and walked away. From that day forward, Shino treated Naruto with a distant, cautious respect that looked from the outside almost like friendship. It was the closest any classmate came in the early days. Sasuke Uchiha sat 3 seats to Naruto's left. Dark hair, dark eyes, dark everything. He was 7 years old and had already buried his entire clan. Itachi had done his work, and Sasuke carried the weight of it in every glare, every clenched fist, every refusal to smile. Naruto noticed him immediately. Not because of the Sharingan bloodline, not because of the massacre, because Sasuke Uchiha radiated desire like a bonfire radiates heat. He wanted things, revenge, power, answers, his brother's blood, with an intensity that Naruto had never felt in any universe he'd ever been. "Interesting," Naruto murmured, watching Sasuke from across the classroom. "What?" Sakura Haruno asked from the next seat, because she'd already developed the habit of sitting near Naruto despite the ambient dread, mostly because his white jumpsuit was clean and he smelled like ozone and starlight, which she found weirdly pleasant. "That boy, he burns." "That's Sasuke. He's the coolest boy in class." "Cool is not the word I would use. He is on fire and does not know it." Sakura had no idea what that meant and decided Naruto was weird. She wasn't wrong. Hinata Hyuga. Now there's a reaction worth talking about. Hinata noticed Naruto on day 1, but not the way she noticed him in canon. The shy crush, the quiet admiration from afar. In this version, Hinata activated her Byakugan during a training exercise and looked at Naruto's chakra network. She fainted. When she woke up, she was trembling. Kurenai, who was assisting that day, asked what happened. His chakra. It's not chakra, Hinata whispered. It's everything. It's like looking at the sun. There's no networks, no coils. It's just light everywhere, infinite. I could see other worlds through him. Kurenai reported this to the Hokage immediately. Minato sighed and added it to the growing file labeled, "Things my son does that I cannot explain to the council." The file was 3 inches thick by this point. Years passed. Naruto attended every class. He participated in every exercise. He threw kunai that hit the target before he threw them. The kunai just appeared in the bullseye, and Naruto's hand completed the throwing motion after. Iruka marked it as a hit and tried not to think about causality violations. During taijutsu sparring, Naruto stood still and let his opponents hit him. Their fists bounced off, not because of a jutsu or a barrier. His skin simply did not accept damage. Kiba punched him full force and broke 2 knuckles. Choji used his family's expansion technique and hit Naruto with a fist the size of a boulder. The fist stopped against Naruto's chest like it hit a wall, and Choji bounced backward 30 feet. Naruto apologized. He seemed genuinely concerned about Choji. "I should calibrate my density," he told Iruka. "I forget that your bodies are fragile." "Our bodies are normal, Naruto." "Yes, that is what I said. Fragile." But here's the thing, and this is what made the Academy years work as a story, what gave them heart underneath the comedy. Naruto was learning. Not jutsu, not taijutsu, not anything in the curriculum. He was learning people. He learned that Shikamaru Nara, despite his genius, was afraid of becoming his father. He learned that Ino Yamanaka's confidence was a shield for deep insecurity about living up to her clan. He learned that Choji's eating was comfort, and the comfort was needed because the world had been unkind to him. He learned that Kiba was loyal to a fault, and that Akamaru was his anchor. He learned that Sakura was brilliant, but had buried that brilliance under a crush she didn't fully understand. He learned that Hinata was quietly the strongest person in the room, because she was terrified every single day and came back every single day anyway. And he learned that Sasuke Uchiha was slowly, methodically constructing himself into a weapon pointed at his own brother, and that the weapon would destroy the wielder long before it reached its target. Naruto found all of this endlessly, heartbreakingly fascinating. "They are so small," he told Kurama one night, lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling. "So fragile, so temporary, and they fight so hard to matter. It is the most beautiful thing I have ever witnessed, and I have witnessed the birth and death of universes." "You're getting soft," Kurama grumbled. "I was never hard. I was empty. There is a difference." Graduation day. Age 12, the entire class lined up for their headbands. Naruto sat through the exam, clone jutsu, transformation jutsu, substitution jutsu, and performed each one flawlessly. His clone wasn't a clone. It was a fully autonomous copy of himself with independent consciousness that turned to him and said, "I exist. This is distressing." Before Naruto dissolved it, Iruka handed him the headband. Naruto tied it around his forehead. The metal plate gleamed. He looked at his reflection in the classroom window. Blonde hair, blue eyes, white jumpsuit, Konoha headband. He looked for just a moment like any other genin. Then Mizuki happened. Mizuki, the traitor. The guy who in canon tricked Naruto into stealing the Forbidden Scroll by exploiting his loneliness and his desire for acceptance. That whole scheme, the manipulation, the cruelty, the reveal about the Nine Tails, was built on the assumption that Naruto was desperate and alone and didn't know what he was. Mizuki approached Naruto after graduation with his smoothest, most trustworthy smile. "Hey Naruto, you know, there's a secret test for top students. If you steal the Forbidden Scroll from the Hokage's office and learn a jutsu from it, you'll be promoted to Chunin immediately." Naruto looked at him. Mizuki's smile held. "Barely. That is a lie," Naruto said. "You intend to steal the scroll for Orochimaru. You plan to frame me for the theft, using the village's distrust as cover. Your motive is a combination of resentment toward the system that passed you over for promotion and a misguided belief that Orochimaru will grant you power in exchange for the scroll." Mizuki's smile collapsed like a building losing its foundation. Also, Naruto continued, you harbor a secret prejudice against me because you know about the Nine Tails and believe I am a monster. This is ironic because the Nine Tails is currently inside me telling me, and I quote, let me eat him. Inside Naruto's mind, Kurama was indeed saying exactly that. Mizuki took a step back. His hand moved toward the giant shuriken on his back. I won't. Mizuki started. Naruto snapped his fingers. Mizuki's clothes vanished. All of them. Replaced instantly with a pink tutu, ballet slippers, and a tiara. His giant shuriken became a bouquet of daisies. Mizuki stood in the middle of the academy courtyard, dressed as a ballerina, holding flowers, his mouth hanging open. Every student who hadn't left yet turned to stare. Kiba was the first one to start laughing. Within seconds, the entire courtyard was in hysterics. Ino had tears running down her face. Shikamaru, who never laughed at anything, was holding his sides. Even Sasuke, had his hand over his mouth and his shoulders were shaking. Mizuki, a trained shonen, a man who had killed before, tried to move. His feet in the ballet slippers performed a perfect pirouette instead. Then another, then a grand jeté across the courtyard that was, objectively, technically flawless. What'd you do to me? Mizuki screamed, mid-leap. I adjusted your motor functions to express your inner truth, Naruto said calmly. You always wanted to be the center of attention. Now you are. You're welcome. Mizuki danced involuntarily and beautifully all the way to the Hokage's office, where Anbu arrested him mid-plie. Iruka, who had arrived to find his colleague performing Swan Lake at knife point, looked at Naruto. You could have just reported him. Yes, but where's the data in that? Iruka rubbed his temples. He was going to need more headache medicine. A lot more. Naruto, you're a strange kid. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. I know, but I am choosing to receive it as one. This is what humans call optimism, correct? Iruka stared at him. Then he laughed, a real laugh, the kind that comes from somewhere deep and surprised. Yeah, kid, that's optimism. Naruto smiled. It was a small, genuine smile, and for just a second, he looked exactly like Kushina. Iruka's heart cracked a little. Team assignments came down a week later. Team 7, Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Jonin Sensei, Kakashi Hatake. When the names were read, Naruto glanced at Sasuke. Sasuke glanced at Naruto. Something passed between them. Not friendship, not rivalry, but a mutual acknowledgement that whatever this was, it was going to be complicated. Sakura looked between them and thought about how she'd somehow been placed on a team with the most attractive boy in school and the most unsettling boy in the world. Her luck was exactly 50%. Kakashi was late. This will surprise no one who knows anything about Kakashi Hatake. The man was chronically, pathologically, almost impressively late to everything. His excuse, always, was that he got lost on the road of life. This was a lie. He was visiting the memorial stone, talking to his dead friends. It was sad, but it was also consistent. He showed up 2 hours after the designated meeting time, slouching through the door of the classroom with his one visible eye curved in that fake smile he used like armor. Yo, sorry I'm late. A black cat crossed my path, so... You were at the memorial stone, Naruto said. Talking to Obito Uchiha, you told him about your new team. You are anxious because your last 2 teams failed your test and you are running out of excuses to avoid mentoring children. Also, your hair defies 3 laws of physics and I find it compelling. The room went silent. Kakashi's visible eye went flat. His fake smile didn't move, but behind it, something very cold and very sharp assessed Naruto with the full weight of 1,000 completed missions. Rooftop, Kakashi said. 5 minutes. They convened on the roof. Kakashi leaned against the railing. Sasuke sat with his hands laced. Sakura sat nervously. Naruto stood, watching pigeons. Introductions, Kakashi said. Name, likes, dislikes, dreams for the future. I'll start. My name is Kakashi Hatake. Things I like and things I dislike. I don't feel like telling you that. My dream for the future. Never really thought about it. That was aggressively unhelpful, Sakura muttered. Your turn, Kakashi said, pointing at Naruto. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like ramen, the concept of impermanence, and the sound rain makes on different surfaces. I dislike cruelty performed without awareness. Cruelty with purpose, I find at least honest. My dream, he paused. The pigeons had stopped moving. Not flying, moving. They were frozen in midair. Nobody noticed except Kakashi, whose eye tightened. My dream is to understand why finite beings choose to love things they know they will lose. Nobody spoke for a long time. That's heavy for a 12-year-old, Kakashi said. I am not 12. Your file says, I know what my file says. Another silence. The pigeons unfroze and flew away like nothing happened. Sasuke went next. Vengeance. Kill Itachi. Standard. Sakura went after. Sasuke-related nonsense. Standard. Tomorrow, Kakashi said, we do the survival exercise. Training ground 7. Don't eat breakfast. You'll throw up. He vanished in a puff of smoke. Sakura groaned. Sasuke grunted. Naruto watched the spot where Kakashi had been and said, he is profoundly lonely. I want to fix that. I wonder if he'd let me. Are you always this weird? Sakura asked. Define weird. You, whatever you do, all of it. Then yes. Training ground 7, early morning, mist on the grass, 3 wooden posts, a memorial stone, classic setup. Kakashi arrived only 1 hour late this time. He found Sakura stretching, Sasuke brooding against a post, and Naruto standing perfectly still in the center of the clearing, eyes closed, apparently listening to something no one else could hear. All right, Kakashi said, holding up 2 bells. The rules are simple. Get a bell, you pass. Don't get a bell, you go back to the academy. You have until noon. Come at me with the intent to kill, or you won't stand a chance. He tied the bells to his belt loop. Ready? Begin. Sakura dove for the bushes. Classic academy training. Hide, observe, plan. Sasuke leaped to a tree branch, already calculating angles of attack. Both textbook responses. Naruto didn't move. Kakashi watched him. Not going to try? I am observing. You're supposed to try to get the bells. I am aware of the stated objective. I am also aware that the true objective is teamwork, which you designed this exercise to teach through the shared experience of failure. The bells are irrelevant. The only way to fail is to fail alone. Kakashi's eye widened. In his entire career of administering this test, no one had ever solved it in the first 30 seconds. That's an interesting theory, Kakashi said carefully, but you still need to demonstrate combat ability, so come at me. Naruto opened his eyes. Very well. He snapped his fingers. The 2 bells on Kakashi's belt turned into small white birds. They chirped, spread their wings, and flew away in opposite directions. One landed on Sakura's head, one landed on Sasuke's shoulder. Kakashi looked down at his empty belt loop. Those were my bells. They were metal. Now they are birds. The transition was smooth. They seemed happy. Kakashi stared at him. The bell birds chirped. That's not how this test works. Then let us proceed with how it works. Kakashi attacked, because he was Kakashi Hatake, and when in doubt, he gathered data. He came in fast, Jonin fast, which for civilians would look like teleportation. Straight punch aimed at Naruto's center mass, a test. See how the kid moves, how he reacts? What his base speed is. Naruto caught the fist, not blocked, caught, like catching a ball tossed underhand. Kakashi's knuckles sat in Naruto's palm, and Naruto looked at them the way someone examines a seashell they found on the beach. Your knuckles have been broken and re-healed 14 times. You have been fighting since you were 5. That is... Naruto looked up, sad. Kakashi ripped his hand back and jumped to create distance. He ran through hand seals, tiger, hare, boar, dog. Fire release, great fireball jutsu. A massive sphere of flame erupted from Kakashi's mouth and roared toward Naruto with enough heat to melt steel. Naruto held up one hand. The fireball hit his palm and stopped. Not dispersed, stopped. It sat in his hand like a glowing orange marble. All that fire and fury compressed into a perfect sphere the size of a tangerine. Naruto looked at it curiously, turned it over. Then it started snowing. The fireball became snow. Thick, soft, white flakes that drifted down from a cloudless sky and covered Training Ground 7 in a gentle blanket of winter. Sakura, still hiding in the bushes, caught a snowflake on her tongue and wondered if she was dreaming. Kakashi watched the snow fall. He reached up and lifted his headband, revealing the Sharingan. Naruto noticed immediately. Oh, a Sharingan. It records visual information and allows you to predict movement by analyzing micromuscular patterns. It is very clever, but the design looks like a pinwheel. Was that intentional? Kakashi didn't answer. The Sharingan spun, recording everything, trying to make sense of what it was seeing. The Tomoe whirled and fed Kakashi data that his brain could not process. My Sharingan can't read you, Kakashi said, and there was something raw in his voice. There's no chakra flow to predict, no muscle tension to analyze. You're not moving on a physical level. It's like you're just deciding what happens. Yes, Naruto said. That is accurate. Kakashi charged Raikiri. The sound of 1,000 birds filled the clearing. Lightning coated Kakashi's hand, blue-white and screaming with enough voltage to punch through steel. This was the technique that gave him his reputation. The one move that had never failed to breach a defense. He drove it forward. Naruto raised 2 fingers, index and middle, like a peace sign. The Raikiri hit his fingers and stopped. The lightning crackled around Naruto's fingertips, popping and sparking, and then it died. Not dissipated, died, the way a fire dies when it runs out of oxygen. The lightning simply ceased to exist because Naruto's 2 fingers told it to. Kakashi's arm tingled. His hand was numb. He looked at Naruto's face and saw the blue eyes staring back at him with pure, unfiltered curiosity. "You are very dedicated," Naruto said. "I respect that." Then Naruto decided the training ground was boring. "I want to see how you function under novel stress," Naruto said. "Routine combat will not reveal your character adequately." He waved his hand. The world changed. The ground dissolved. The trees vanished. The sky went black, then exploded with stars. Not Konoha stars, but stars that were too close, too bright, too many. The training ground was gone. They were standing on a floating island of rock, drifting in space, surrounded by nebula and distant galaxies in the terrifying, beautiful silence of the void. Sakura screamed. It was a good scream. Full-bodied, lung-powered, the kind of scream that communicates, "I am 12 years old and I am in space and I did not agree to this." Sasuke did not scream. Sasuke Uchiha would rather die than scream. But his eyes were wide, his hands were gripping the rock beneath him, and his knuckles were white. He was floating slightly. The gravity was wrong, lighter than earth, just enough to make every movement feel dreamlike and wrong. Kakashi Atake, veteran of 3 wars, student of the 4th Hokage, master of 1,000 jutsu, the man called the Copy Ninja, was floating upside down. His book had drifted out of his pocket and was spinning lazily in zero gravity about 3 feet from his face. His expression had not changed. This was because his expression had broken. It had locked into the default Kakashi face, bored, half-lidded, unimpressed. But behind the mask, both literal and metaphorical, Kakashi Hatake was having the single most profound existential crisis of his life. He had seen Obito die. He had killed Rin with his own hand. He had found his father's body. He had believed until this moment that nothing could shake him. He was wrong, because a 12-year-old had just teleported them to space. "Naruto!" Sakura yelled, spinning slowly in midair, her pink hair drifting around her face like seaweed. Put us back right now! In a moment, I'm collecting data." Naruto floated in the center of the island, perfectly still, cross-legged, watching them with those blue eyes. He looked peaceful, happy, even, like a kid watching fish in a tank. "To understand you," Naruto said, "I must see you struggle, not against me. That would be pointless, against yourselves, against the unknown. Show me who you are when everything familiar is gone." Sasuke, who had grabbed a rock and stabilized himself, looked at Naruto, his Sharingan activated. He didn't even mean to, it just fired on pure survival instinct. He saw Naruto. He saw the same thing Hinata saw. He saw infinity wearing a kid's face, his Sharingan deactivated. He clutched his eyes. "What are you?" Sasuke whispered. "Asking that question is more valuable than any bell." Naruto smiled. Test passed. He waved his hand, training ground. 7 reformed around them, grass, trees, posts, the memorial stone, snow still on the ground from earlier, gravity normal. Sakura collapsed onto the grass, breathing hard. Sasuke sat down heavily against a post, visibly shaken. Kakashi landed on his feet, years of shinobi training giving him that much at least, and caught his book out of the air. He looked at Naruto for a long time. "You pass," Kakashi said. "All 3 of you." "Because of teamwork?" Sakura asked weakly. "Because I need to keep an eye on him." Kakashi pointed at Naruto. "And I need witnesses." From that day forward, Team 7 existed, not as a normal Genin team, as an arrangement where one member was an unknowable cosmic entity, one was a traumatized Avenger, one was an overachieving civilian-born Kunoichi, and the team leader was a man who had added existential dread to his daily routine, alongside reading smut and being late to things. They did D-rank missions. Naruto found them delightful. Catching the fire daimyo's wife's cat, Tora, Naruto simply asked the cat to come to him. The cat came. The cat, which had scratched and bitten every genin team that ever chased it, walked up to Naruto, sat down at his feet, and purred. It recognizes a superior predator, Naruto explained. You're not a predator, Sakura said. I am everything. That includes predator. Weeding gardens, Naruto touched the ground, and every weed in the garden withered and died. The flowers bloomed brighter, painting fences. Naruto stared at the fence, and it painted itself. Then it became a better fence. The wood grain realigned into a more structurally sound pattern. The client stared at his fence, which was now nicer than his house, and burst into tears. I want a real mission, Sasuke said one day after a particularly mind-numbing day of carrying groceries. For once, Naruto agreed. Controlled environments limit observational data. I require chaos. Kakashi, reading his book, turned a page. I'll talk to the Hokage. The Land of Waves mission came through. C rank, escort Tazuna the bridge builder to the Land of Waves. Protect him from bandits and thugs. Simple. It was not going to be simple. They set out from Konoha's gates on a Tuesday. Tazuna was drunk, rude, and hiding something. Standard client. Sakura was nervous. Sasuke was focused. Kakashi was alert in that lazy way of his that concealed constant threat assessment. Naruto walked beside Tazuna and said, You are lying about the mission parameters. The threat level is significantly higher than C rank. You have enemies with military resources. You chose to lie because you cannot afford an A rank mission fee. Your grandson believes you are a hero. You are afraid of proving him wrong. Tazuna stopped walking. His face went pale. He opened his mouth. I will not expose your deception, Naruto said. I find your motivation compelling. Deception born from love is the most human kind of lie. We will continue. Tazuna closed his mouth. He stared at the blonde kid in the white jumpsuit who had just read his entire life in one glance. Thanks, Tazuna said. You are welcome. The demon brothers attacked first. Two shonen-level rogue ninjas with poison-edged chains rising from a puddle in the road that shouldn't have existed because it hadn't rained in 3 days. They erupted behind the team, chains wrapping around Kakashi, pulling tight and ripping him apart. Sakura screamed. Sasuke moved, fast, precise, a kunai in each hand, exactly the way the academy taught. He intercepted the chain with a shuriken, pinned it to a tree, and engaged the brothers in close combat. He was good. Really good. 12-year-old good, but still good. Naruto watched. The demon brothers, realizing their chain was pinned, detached it and split up. One went for Tazuna. Sakura moved in front of the bridge builder, kunai up, hands shaking but stance correct. The other brother circled back toward Naruto. Just a kid, the brother snarled, clawed gauntlet dripping poison. He lunged. Naruto sidestepped without looking at him. The brother sailed past, hit the ground, rolled, and came back with a slash aimed at Naruto's throat. The claws hit Naruto's neck and stopped. The sound was like metal hitting diamond. The brother's arm vibrated so hard that his gauntlet cracked. Naruto turned to look at him. Your poison is organic, derived from a modified soldier pill compound mixed with hemlock extract. It would be lethal to a normal human within 40 seconds. He reached out and touched the brother's gauntlet. The poison evaporated. The metal returned to its original unenhanced state. Now it is a glove. You may continue wearing it if you wish. The brother looked at his glove, looked at Naruto, looked at his brother who was being kicked in the ribs by Sasuke. I surrender, he said, wise. Kakashi, who had been alive the whole time, substitution jutsu, log trick classic, dropped from a tree. Well handled. But Naruto, I noticed you didn't help until one of them came to you. Correct. I was observing how the team functions under threat. Sasuke relies on speed and precision. Sakura relies on courage she does not believe she has. You rely on deception and misdirection. All of these are valid survival strategies. I found the data valuable. Kakashi stared at him. You treated an ambush as a social experiment. Everything is a social experiment. Existence is the variable. Behavior is the data. Kakashi added, has no survival instinct because he doesn't need one, to his mental profile of Naruto and moved on. They reached the Land of Waves by boat. The mist closed in around them, thick, wet, obscuring. Tazuna grew quieter. The bridge loomed ahead, half finished, a skeleton of ambition reaching across the water. And then the mist got worse. Not natural worse, jutsu worse. The air thickened with chakra-laced fog that ate visibility and dampened sound. This was hidden mist jutsu, and the man behind it stepped out of the fog like a nightmare wearing bandages. Zabuza Momochi, demon of the hidden mist, former member of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen, a man who killed an entire graduating class of academy students as a child, before he was even a student himself. He carried Kubikira Bocho, the executioner's blade, a sword taller than most men, designed to regenerate itself by absorbing the iron from the blood of its victims. He was leaning on the sword, smiling beneath his bandages. Kakashi of the Sharingan, Zabuza said, and 3 little genin, this should be fun. Kakashi pushed up his headband. The Sharingan spun. Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, protect Tazuna. Do not engage. Sure, Naruto said, sounding exactly like a 12-year-old who was about to ignore that instruction. Zabuza moved. Water clone jutsu. 3 clones erupted from the mist, each one wielding a copy of the massive blade. They hit fast, coordinated, designed to test Kakashi's defenses and identify the weakest link in the formation. Kakashi engaged. He was brilliant, fluid, efficient, his Sharingan predicting and countering every swing. But Zabuza was brilliant too. A rank missing 9. A killer from birth. And while Kakashi fought the clones, the real Zabuza circled. Water prison jutsu. Kakashi got caught. A sphere of water, dense and compressed, formed around him. Zabuza's hand was buried in it, maintaining the seal. Kakashi was trapped, suspended, unable to move or form hand seals. Run, Kakashi said, his voice muffled through the water. Take Tazuna and run. He can only maintain this with one hand. That looks uncomfortable, Naruto said. He was standing at the edge of the water, hands in the pockets of his white jumpsuit, watching the prison with mild interest. The way you watch a fish tank at a restaurant while waiting for your food. Zabuza, still maintaining the prison, looked at the blonde kid. Scram, brat, you're out of your league. Naruto blinked. The water prison dissolved, not burst, not broken, dissolved. The water lost cohesion at the molecular level, separating into hydrogen and oxygen, evaporating into nothing. Zabuza's hand, which had been maintaining the seal, closed on empty air. Kakashi dropped to the water's surface, gasping, soaked. Zabuza stared at his hand, then at the space where his jutsu had been, then at Naruto. What? I disagree with that jutsu's premise, Naruto said. Water should not be a prison. Water should be free. I corrected the error. You corrected my jutsu. Yes. Zabuza's eyes narrowed. He gripped Kubikira Bocho with both hands. He was a killer. He had faced Kages. He had been hunted by the entire Mist Ambu division and survived. He did not get rattled by children. He launched himself at Naruto. The executioner's blade came down in a massive vertical cleave, enough force to split a building foundation. The blade hit Naruto's neck and bent, like a spoon hitting a brick wall. The massive, legendary, blood-drinking blade of the 7 swordsmen bent against the side of a 12-year-old's neck and stayed bent. Zabuza felt the impact travel up through the handle and into his arms. His wrists screamed. His shoulders popped. His teeth clacked together. Naruto looked down at the bent blade, then up at Zabuza. That single syllable contained more threat than any killing intent Zabuza had ever faced. Because it wasn't a threat. It was an observation, an acknowledgement. The sound a god makes when a mortal does something that registers on its attention, if only barely. Zabuza, demon of the mist, took a step back. You want to kill the bridge builder, Naruto said. His voice was conversational, light, curious. Walk me through that desire. It's a job, Zabuza said, and his voice was steady because he was a professional, even when every cell in his body was screaming at him to run. Gado pays. Tazuna dies. It's simple. Is it? You were born in the bloody mist. You killed to survive. You were weaponized before you could choose. Your rebellion against the Mizukage failed, and you became a mercenary to fund a second attempt. The killing is not the desire. The desire is to free your village. The killing is the compromise. Zabuza's eyes widened. Behind his bandages, his jaw clenched. How do you know that? I know everything. It is very tiring. A figure dropped from the trees, small, masked, a hunter-nin mask, the porcelain kind, with the mist symbol. This was Haku, and even in combat, even in the chaos of the moment, he moved like poetry. He landed beside Zabuza, Senbon already in hand. Zabuza-sama, we should retreat. This one is, I know what he is, Haku. Zabuza hadn't taken his eyes off Naruto. I just don't believe it. Naruto looked at Haku and went still. Not the normal stillness, the other kind. the cosmic kind. The kind where the 12-year-old mask slipped and the thing behind it surfaced like a whale breaching an ocean. The air pressure changed. The mist pulled back, not because of wind, but because the water molecules themselves were trying to put distance between themselves and the boy. "You exist only for him," Naruto said, looking at Haku. "Your entire identity, your will, your power, your reason for breathing, it is all for this man beside you." Haku's hand tightened on the senbon. Behind the mask unseen, his expression broke. That is, fascinating and sad, mostly sad. The mist was gone now. The sun hit the water. Everything was bright and exposed, and there was nowhere for anyone to hide. "I want to try something," Naruto said. "An experiment." He raised one hand, and the air in front of Haku shimmered. Two figures materialized, translucent, ghostly, but detailed, perfectly detailed. A man and a woman. The man had Haku's jaw. The woman had Haku's eyes. Haku's parents, not resurrected, not alive. Echoes, memory constructs pulled from the fabric of reality, shaped from the traces that every living thing leaves on the universe when it passes through. They were as real as a photograph and as heartbreaking as a funeral. Haku's mask cracked. Not physically, emotionally. His hand came up to the porcelain face covering and pulled it away, revealing a beautiful androgynous face twisted in agony. Mother, father. The echoes didn't speak. They couldn't. But they looked at Haku with an expression that was burned into the universe's memory. The way his mother had looked at him in that last moment, before his father killed her, before Haku killed his father, before everything went wrong in a tiny house in a frozen country. Love. Pure, terrified, doomed love. Haku collapsed to his knees on the water's surface and sobbed. Zabuza watched. His hand was on his broken sword. His face was stone. But his eyes, those sharp killer's eyes, were wet. "Stop," Zabuza said. His voice was rough. "Whatever you're doing, stop it." "Why?" Naruto asked. "Because he doesn't deserve this. He deserves the truth. So do you." Naruto waved his hand and the echoes turned to face Zabuza. And for one moment, through some cosmic manipulation that Zabuza couldn't explain, the echoes looked like Zabuza's own ghosts, his fallen comrades from the failed coup, his old sensei, the version of himself that believed in something before the world beat it out of him. Zabuza's sword hand trembled. "You are more than a weapon," Naruto said to both of them. "That is my hypothesis. The experiment continues." He dissolved the echoes. They faded like morning fog. Zabuza and Haku stood on the water, breathing hard, looking at each other. Something had shifted between them. Something unspoken and enormous and too raw to name. "We retreat," Zabuza said. "For now." They vanished into the mist. Kakashi, standing on the water behind Naruto, had not moved during any of this. He was soaked, exhausted, and watching Naruto with the expression of a man who just realized the campfire he's been warming his hands by is actually a nuclear reactor. "Naruto," Kakashi said, "what you just did to them. I showed them themselves. That is not cruelty. That is a gift most people never receive. It hurt them. Truth often does. That does not diminish its value." Sakura on the bridge was hugging Tazuna, not for comfort, because she needed something to hold on to that was normal and smelled like booze and sawdust instead of ozone and eternity. Sasuke stood apart. His arms were crossed. His face was blank. But his eyes, those dark, burning Uchiha eyes, were fixed on Naruto with an intensity that bordered on obsession. He just broke a legendary swordsman without lifting a finger, Sasuke thought. He just made the demon of the mist cry. He just showed them they're dead. And he did it all while looking like he was ordering ramen. Something in Sasuke shifted, not toward admiration, toward hunger. If Naruto can do that, what could he do for me? The thought was a seed, and it would grow. They stayed at Tazuna's house for a week while the bridge was finished. In that week, 3 things happened. First, Naruto met Inari, Tazuna's grandson. Inari, the sad little boy who cried about his dead stepfather and told everyone that heroes didn't exist. "Heroes don't exist," Inari shouted at dinner, tears running down his face. "Nobody can beat Gato. Everyone who tries just dies." The table went quiet. Sakura looked down at her plate. Sasuke kept eating. Kakashi watched Naruto. Naruto set down his chopsticks. "You are correct," he said. Everyone stared at him. "Heroes do not exist," Naruto continued. "Not in the way you mean. No one descends from the sky to save you. No one owes you rescue. The world is exactly as cruel as you have experienced. Your stepfather fought. He died. That is the truth. Inari's face crumbled. But, Naruto said, and his voice shifted, warmer, softer, almost human. Your stepfather fought anyway, knowing he would die, knowing it was hopeless. That is not heroism. That is love. And love is the only force in this or any universe that does not require power to change things. Inari stared at him. I have infinite power, Naruto said. I could erase Gato from existence right now, remove him from history, make it so he was never born. But that would not teach you anything, and I find that teaching is more interesting than erasing. Inari cried harder. But something in the crying changed. The despair broke like a fever, and underneath it was something new, something that looked like anger, the useful kind. Second, Naruto visited Zabuza and Haku. He found them in a cabin in the woods, Zabuza recovering from his injuries, Haku tending to him. He walked through their traps without triggering them. He knocked on the door like a neighbor stopping by. Haku opened the door. Hello, Naruto said. I brought tea. He had in fact brought tea. Excellent tea. Tea that shouldn't have existed in this region, that grew only in a specific valley in the land of tea, that Haku had once mentioned to Zabuza in passing he'd like to try someday. A detail buried in a conversation from 2 years ago that no one else on Earth could have known. Haku took the tea with shaking hands. Naruto sat with them for an hour. He asked Haku about his ice release. He asked Zabuza about the coup attempt. He listened. Actually listened. Not with cosmic omniscience. He turned that off, or seemed to, or at least he acted like he was hearing these stories for the first time. And maybe the acting was good enough that it was the same thing as real. When he left, Zabuza said, "That kid is going to destroy the world or save it, and I honestly cannot tell which." "Maybe both," Haku said. "That doesn't make me feel better." Third, Gato made his move. The bridge was nearly finished. Tazuna was hours from completing his life's work, the thing that would break Gato's stranglehold on the land of waves. So Gato did what men like Gato always do. He threw money at the problem. 300 mercenaries. Thugs, bandits, ronin, every violent reject with a blade and a gambling debt within 100 miles. They assembled at the end of the bridge, a wall of steel and bad intentions. Gato stood behind them, flanked by his personal samurai bodyguards, grinning with the confidence of a man who has never personally faced consequences for anything in his miserable life. "Kill the bridge builder," Gato shouted. "Kill them all! I'll pay double for the ninjas' heads." The mercenaries charged. Kakashi moved in front of Tazuna. Sasuke activated his Sharingan. Sakura pulled a kunai. Zabuza and Haku appeared from the mist, on Team 7's side because somewhere in the last week, Naruto had, without overt effort, completely restructured their allegiance. It was going to be a brutal fight. Naruto raised one hand. "I have a better idea." The bridge changed. The concrete surface, flat and utilitarian, rippled like water. The material flowed, reshaped, reformed. In 3 seconds, the bridge's last 100 meters became a slide. A massive, polished, and possibly slick water slide, angled downward at 45 degrees, feeding directly into the ocean below. The mercenaries, mid-charge, hit the frictionless surface and lost their footing instantly. 300 armed men went sliding, screaming, flailing, grabbing at each other, swords clanging, armor scraping. A cascade of human failure pouring off the edge of the bridge and into the cold ocean below in a waterfall of splashing and yelling and regret. Gato watched his entire army cartwheel into the sea. His bodyguards tried to hold their ground. They went too. Gato himself, standing in the back, felt his expensive shoes lose traction. He grabbed at the railing. The railing became a slide rail. Gato went over the side with a scream that contained every vowel in the human language. He hit the water with a splash that was deeply, deeply satisfying. Naruto watched them go with his head tilted. The wind caught his blonde hair. He looked peaceful. "Violence is dull," Naruto said. "Drama is better." The entire population of the Land of Waves had come out to the bridge. They'd come with tools and kitchen knives and farming implements, ready to fight for their freedom. And instead they watched their oppressor and his entire army get flushed into the ocean like a clogged drain. They started laughing, then cheering, then crying. Tazuna was on his knees, tears streaming, and his grandson Inari was standing beside him, small fist raised, screaming his lungs out with joy. Zabuza, standing at the bridge's edge, watched the mercenaries floundering in the water below. "I have killed hundreds of men in my career," he said. "That was more effective than all of it." "Humiliation is underrated as a tactical tool," Naruto said. Haku covered his mouth, but his shoulders were shaking. He was laughing. Zabuza stared at him like he'd never seen Haku laugh before. Maybe he hadn't. They left the Land of Waves 3 days later. The bridge was finished. Tazuna named it the Great Naruto Bridge, which Naruto found unnecessary but emotionally resonant. Zabuza and Haku left too, not back to mercenary work, but east toward the Land of Water. Naruto had given Zabuza one piece of information before they parted: the location and schedule of the corrupt Mizukage who had created the Bloody Mist. "For your second attempt," Naruto said, "this one will succeed." Zabuza looked at him for a long time. Then he nodded once, sharp and final, and vanished into the mist with Haku at his side. Kakashi filed his mission report and listed it as C-rank mission with unexpected complications, because if he wrote what actually happened, they'd put him in a psychiatric ward. Sasuke sat on the walk home and said nothing. But his fists were clenched in his pockets and the seed was growing. Back in Konoha, life continued. Team 7 did more missions. Naruto continued to be an impossible, endearing, terrifying enigma wrapped in a white jumpsuit. Then the Chunin exams were announced. Kakashi nominated Team 7 with the enthusiasm of a man offering his most problematic students to someone else's jurisdiction for a few weeks. The notification came through. 3-man teams, written exam, survival test, tournament finals. The entire Konoha 12 was entering. Teams 8, 9, 10, all the rookies plus guys' team. The village was buzzing. Foreign teams were arriving. Sand, sound, grass, waterfall. The exams were as much political theater as they were martial tests, and every village wanted to show off their best. Naruto found the entire concept delightful. A ritualized competition to determine social hierarchy based on combat performance. He was practically glowing. This is exactly the kind of data I need. Desire, ambition, fear, all concentrated in one venue. Magnificent. "You're excited," Sakura observed. "I am experiencing what I believe is anticipation. It is a novel sensation. I enjoy it. Most people just call that being pumped up. Pumped up, yes, I am pumped up." He said it with such sincere alien precision that Sakura burst out laughing. Day 1, the written exam, a massive classroom in the academy building, desks arranged in rows, Chunin proctors stationed around the perimeter. At the front, Ibiki Morino, head of the torture and interrogation department, a man whose face was a topographical map of violence and whose personality was specifically calibrated to make people uncomfortable. "Listen up," Ibiki barked. "This is the first test of the Chunin selection exams. There are 9 questions on your paper. You have 1 hour. The 10th question will be presented at the end. The rules are simple. Cheat and you're out. Get caught 5 times and your entire team is disqualified. Begin." Papers flipped, pencils scratched. The questions were, as always, designed to be nearly impossible for Jinin. The real test was intelligence gathering. Could you cheat without being caught? Kiba used Akamaru, Neji used Byakugan, Gaara used his Sandai, Tenten used mirrors, Shino used his bugs. The room was a hive of barely concealed espionage. Naruto picked up his pencil. He wrote. In 30 seconds, his pencil stopped. He turned his paper over, set the pencil down, and leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. One of the proctors walked over, looked at the paper, looked at Naruto, walked to Ibiki, whispered something. Ibiki's scarred face tightened. He walked over and picked up Naruto's paper. Every question was answered. Every answer was correct. Not just correct. Several answers included corrections to the questions themselves, noting errors in the premise or identifying additional valid solutions. In the margin of question 4, Naruto had written, "This question has 2 correct answers. B is correct if you assume standard atmospheric chakra density. D is correct if you account for altitude variation in the Land of Wind, which you should, given that Sand Jinin are present." Ibiki stared at the paper. He stared at Naruto. Naruto stared at the ceiling. Ibiki walked back to the front of the room and said nothing. 45 minutes later, time was up. Ibiki presented the 10th question. "Before I give you the final question, there's a new rule. You can choose not to take the 10th question. If you choose not to take it, you and your team fail. If you choose to take it and get it wrong, you will be barred from ever taking the Chunin exams again." The room erupted. Panic. Arguments. Team members hissing at each other. Several hands went up. Teams quit, filed out. The pressure was crushing. Ibiki opened his mouth to continue the gambit. The answer to the final question is irrelevant. Naruto's voice was calm, conversational. It cut through the room like a blade through fog. Everyone turned to look at him. He was still leaned back in his chair, still looking at the ceiling. The test was about whether you'd fold under pressure. It was never about the question. The entire written exam was an intelligence-gathering exercise designed to assess your ability to obtain information under hostile conditions without being detected. The 10th question is a binary pressure test, a false dilemma with no wrong answer because the correct answer is refusing to quit. Anyone who quits has demonstrated that they lack the psychological resilience required for shonen-level operations. Dead silence. Also, Naruto added, still not looking at anyone. Question 4 had 2 correct answers. You should fix that. Ibiki stared at him. The room stared at him. Ibiki started laughing. Not a warm laugh. The laugh of a man who interrogates people for a living, hearing something that genuinely surprised him. A rough, sharp bark of appreciation. He's right, Ibiki said, about all of it. You all pass. He pulled off his headband. The scars, the burns, the damage, the proof of what real intelligence work costs. Information is the most valuable weapon a ninja has. The ability to keep your head when the cost of failure is everything. That is what separates a chunin from a corpse. He looked at Naruto one more time. Naruto finally looked back. Ibiki's smile faded. He saw something in those blue eyes that made every scar on his body ache. Proctor for the second exam stepped forward, Ibiki said, and he looked very much like a man who wanted to be somewhere else. The window exploded. Anko Mitarashi crashed through the glass in a shower of shards and chakra, landing in a crouch, banner unfurling behind her. Second examiner, Anko Mitarashi. All right, maggots, she shouted, grinning. Follow me to Training Ground 44, the Forest of Death. She looked at Ibiki. How many teams left? More than usual. Sloppy, Ibiki. One of them is unusual. Anko followed his gaze to the blonde kid in the back row, who was already standing up and walking toward the door with his hands in his pockets. She shrugged. They all bleed the same. I wouldn't bet on that, Ibiki murmured. The Forest of Death. 44 square kilometers of nightmare ecology. Trees the size of buildings, insects the size of dogs. Predators that didn't exist in any textbook because the textbook authors got eaten before they could write them down. Each team received a scroll, heaven or earth. To pass, you needed both scrolls within 5 days and had to reach the tower at the center. Simple in theory, absolutely brutal in practice. Team 7 entered through Gate 12. The forest swallowed them. For most teams, the Forest of Death was a gauntlet. Fight, survive, hunt for scrolls, avoid the predators, don't die. For Team 7, it was a nature walk with occasional interruptions. A rain team attacked them on day 1. 3 chunin-level genin with water jutsu. Sasuke handled it. He'd been itching for combat since the wave mission, and Naruto let him. 2 minutes. Fire release. Phoenix Sage Fire Jutsu, multiple fireballs, controlled, precise. Sasuke's Sharingan was developing fast. The rain team went down. Naruto took their scroll and handed to Sakura. We have both scrolls. We could proceed to the tower now. It's day 1, Kakashi had told them before the exam that they had 5 days. Yes, efficiency seems optimal. Sasuke objected. I want to fight more. Desire noted. Cataloged. They kept moving. On day 2, the forest went quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Dead quiet. The insects stopped buzzing. The animals stopped moving. The air itself seemed to thicken, like the world was holding its breath. Orochimaru had arrived. He came through the trees like a nightmare. Fluid, boneless, his tongue too long and his eyes too yellow, and everything about him radiating the kind of danger that your hindbrain understood before your conscious mind caught up. He was wearing a grass ninja disguise, but the disguise was pointless. You could not disguise this level of wrong. He landed in front of them on a branch, smiled, that snake smile. Sasuke-kun, he said, and his voice was oil and honey and venom. I've been looking for you. Sasuke went rigid. Every muscle, every nerve, the survival instinct of a 12-year-old facing something his body knew absolutely and completely could kill him. Sakura was frozen. She couldn't move. Killing intent, the raw psychic pressure of a Akatsuki-level ninja's will to murder, pinned her in place like a bug on a board. Naruto was standing between them and Orochimaru. "A snake who wants to be a dragon," Naruto said pleasantly. "How cliché." Orochimaru's yellow eyes focused on the blonde kid in white. He smiled wider. "The Hokage's son. I've heard interesting things about you. You have heard a fraction of a percentage of the truth. But please, continue. You are about to threaten my teammate." Orochimaru chuckled. The sound slithered through the trees. "I don't threaten, child. I take." He bit his thumb. Blood. Seals. Summoning jutsu, Manda exploded into existence, the great serpent, the boss summon of the snake contract. 100 meters of armored scales, toxic venom, and ancient fury. The trees snapped like toothpicks as Manda's body coiled around the clearing, his massive head rising above the canopy, tongue flicking. "Orochimaru," Manda hissed. "You summoned me for children? This better be worth 100 sacrifices." "It will be," Orochimaru said, standing on Manda's head, "once I've marked the Uchiha." Naruto looked up at Manda. Manda looked down at Naruto. Naruto raised one hand. "Be small." That was it. 2 words. No hand seals, no chakra, no technique. Just a statement of intent from a being that had once been the underlying reality of an entire omniverse. Manda shrunk. The process took less than a second. 100 meters of legendary serpent compressed, collapsed, diminished. The trees sprang back. The ground stopped shaking. The shadow that had covered the clearing retreated. Where the great Manda had been, there was now a worm. A small, brown, thoroughly ordinary earthworm, wriggling in the dirt. Orochimaru, who had been standing on Manda's head, was now standing on the ground, looking down at a worm, the greatest snake summoner in history, the man who had defected from 3 hidden villages, the immortality-seeking genius who made Kages sweat. He was looking at his most powerful summon, now the size of his pinky finger, doing a confused little wiggle in the mud. "What?" Orochimaru said. His voice was flat, empty, the voice of a man whose processor has crashed. "I asked him to be small," Naruto said. "He obliged. He is much more pleasant this way." Orochimaru's composure returned. It was not genuine composure. It was the mask of a man who had survived this long by never ever letting anyone see him off balance. He ran through hand seals at a speed that shouldn't have been possible. 5-pronged seal. He blurred forward, fingers blazing with purple chakra, and drove them into Naruto's stomach. The seal, designed to disrupt the Jinchuriki's connection to their tailed beast, designed to cripple and debilitate, hit home. Orochimaru felt it connect. Then he felt Naruto's hand on his forehead. 1 finger, index finger, placed gently on the center of Orochimaru's forehead, right between those serpentine eyes, with the casual precision of someone poking a friend to get their attention. "Knowledge," Naruto said. Orochimaru saw. He saw the multiverse. Not a metaphor, not a genjutsu, not a hallucination. The actual literal multiverse. Every universe that existed, stacked and layered and folded into dimensions that human brains were not equipped to comprehend. He saw the scope of reality, infinite, literally infinite, stretching in every direction, in every dimension, and every possibility without end. He saw the beyonder. He saw what Naruto was before he chose to be small. He saw an entity that did not exist within reality, but was reality. A consciousness so vast that every star, every planet, every ninja, every jutsu, every god, every demon, every concept, including life and death and time and space, were to it less than a single cell is to a human body. He saw his own ambitions, immortality, the knowledge of every jutsu, the power to transcend human limits, the great work of his life, decades of research and sacrifice and horror against the scale of what Naruto actually was. Orochimaru's ambitions looked like a child's crayon drawing placed next to the Sistine Chapel. Less than that. They looked like a single pixel on a screen showing the entire history of the universe. Orochimaru fell to his knees. He was weeping. Not from pain, not from fear, from the total, absolute, irreversible destruction of his ego. Every ambition he'd ever had, every scheme, every plan, every murder committed in the name of progress, it was nothing, less than nothing. A joke that no one was laughing at. He tried to form words. His mouth moved. No sound came out. Naruto looked down at him with something that, in a certain light, might have been compassion. "You have spent your life trying to become infinite," Naruto said. "I was infinite. It was very boring. You are not missing what you think you are missing." Orochimaru stood. It took him 3 attempts. His legs wouldn't stop shaking. He looked at Naruto one more time. Then he turned and ran, not retreated, not withdrew tactically, ran. Orochimaru, the snake Sannin, the most feared rogue ninja in the world, sprinted into the forest of death like something was chasing him. Something was. The truth. The clearing was silent. Sasuke stood behind Naruto, Sharingan active, and he had seen everything. Not the cosmic vision, that was between Naruto and Orochimaru. But he had seen Orochimaru, the monster that even his brother respected, brought to his knees by Naruto touching his forehead. One finger, one word. The most dangerous man in the fire country, destroyed. How? Sasuke whispered. Naruto turned to him. The cosmic stillness faded. The blue eyes warmed. He was a kid again. How are you this strong? Strength implies effort. I do not exert effort. I simply am. That sentence hit Sasuke like a physical blow, because Sasuke exerted effort. Sasuke trained until his knuckles bled and his muscles screamed and his eyes burned. Sasuke fought for every scrap of power. And this boy, this blonde, smiling, white jumpsuit-wearing enigma, just was. The seed grew roots. Sakura, who had been paralyzed by killing intent for the last 5 minutes, finally moved. She looked at the spot where Orochimaru had been. She looked at the worm that used to be Manda. She looked at Naruto. "Can we go to the tower now?" she asked. Her voice was very small. "Yes," Naruto said. "I believe we have sufficient data." They reached the tower in record time. When they opened their scrolls, Iruka appeared in the summoning smoke, ready to congratulate them. He saw their faces, Sakura's shell shock, Sasuke's intensity, Naruto's calm, and he didn't ask questions. He'd learned not to. The preliminary rounds were held immediately. Too many teams had passed. One-on-one fights in the tower's arena selected by random electronic board. Most of them were straightforward. Sasuke fought a sound ninja and won with fire release and taijutsu. Sakura fought Ino. It went to a draw. Shikamaru fought Ken and won with shadows. Kiba, Shino, Hinata, Lee, Tenten, Neji. They all had their matches. Naruto's preliminary match was against a sound genin named Zaku, the one with the air tubes in his arms. The board displayed the names. Zaku grinned. "Lucky me. I get the Hokage's kid." He raised his arms. The tubes opened, decapitating airwaves. Twin blasts of compressed supersonic air shot from Zaku's palms. These were military-grade attacks, concentrated enough to shatter stone, focused enough to sever limbs. The air hit Naruto and went around him, like water around a stone, like the universe itself parted to let him stand untouched. Zaku fired again and again. He emptied everything, overloading his tubes, pushing past his limits. The arena walls cracked, the floor cratered, dust and debris exploded everywhere. When it cleared, Naruto was standing exactly where he'd been, hands in his pockets, not a hair out of place. "Are you finished?" Naruto asked. Zaku's arms sparked, overloaded, smoking. "What are you?" Naruto walked forward, casual, unhurried. He reached Zaku, stood directly in front of him, and said, "Forfeit." The word didn't carry killing intent. It carried certainty. The absolute cosmic certainty that this fight was over and had been over before it started. And Zaku's only remaining decision was whether to accept that with dignity or without it. Zaku forfeited. The proctor called the match. In the stands, like every ninja with any sense, was very, very quiet. The finals were set. 1 month of preparation. The tournament bracket was posted. Naruto versus Neji Hyuga. The matchup generated more buzz than anything in the Chunin exams in a decade. On one side, Neji Hyuga, the genius of the Hyuga clan, the prodigy who had mastered the gentle fist to a degree that surpassed many adults, the cold, calculated fighter who believed in destiny with religious fervor. On the other side, the Hokage's son, who had turned the Chunin exams into a series of increasingly inexplicable events. The month passed. Naruto didn't train. There was nothing to train for. He spent the month doing other things. He visited the hospital and healed 3 terminally ill patients by looking at them. The doctors found no explanation. The patients woke up with perfect health and a strange, lingering sense of peace they couldn't explain. He sat on the Hokage monument and had long conversations with his father about the nature of love. "You loved Mother," Naruto said. "You knew she would die. You loved her anyway. That is either the bravest thing a mortal can do or the most foolish." "Both," Minato said. "It's both. I want to understand that. The both, where the bravery and the foolishness overlap. I think that overlap is what makes you human." Well enough, he found Hinata training alone in a field, struggling with a technique, failing again and again, and he sat and watched without helping. When she noticed him, she froze. "I could teach you," Naruto said. "I could give you mastery over your bloodline in an instant." I want to earn it," Hinata said, her voice barely above a whisper. Naruto smiled. A real smile. "That is the correct answer, not because earning it is more efficient. It is objectively less efficient, but because the process of earning it will change you, and change is the only thing I cannot predict." Hinata went back to training. Her palms were bleeding. She didn't stop. Naruto watched her with something that looked, if you squinted and tilted your head, very much like admiration. The day of the finals. The stadium was packed. Kaji-level security. The feudal lords of multiple nations in the VIP boxes. The Hokage seated with his advisors. Every major and minor ninja clan represented. Civilians crammed into the upper seats, selling food, making bets, creating the kind of electric festival atmosphere that turns sporting events into cultural moments. Naruto stood in the competitors' area, white jumpsuit clean, headband gleaming, watching the crowd with those blue eyes. 50,000 humans, he murmured, all gathered to watch other humans fight. The desire to witness conflict, the communal experience of victory and defeat. Remarkable. "You're talking to yourself again," Sakura said from beside him. "I am talking to the universe. It does not answer, but I find the conversation stimulating." "You're so weird. You have said that 47 times since we became teammates. I have begun to interpret it as affection." Sakura opened her mouth, closed it, blushed. "Maybe." The first match was called. Naruto Uzumaki versus Neji Hyuga. Fighters to the arena. Naruto walked out. The crowd reacted. Murmurs, whispers, the subtle shift in energy that happens when 50,000 people focus their attention on one person. Most of them had heard the rumors. The Hokage's strange son, the boy who did impossible things, the genin that made his proctors nervous. Neji Hyuga was already in the arena, standing straight, arms at his sides, veins bulging around his eyes. Byakugan already active. He radiated confidence the way a glacier radiates cold. Slow, massive, and absolutely certain of its own immovability. They faced each other across 20 meters of packed dirt. Jinma, the proctor, stood between them, Senbon in his mouth. "Rules are simple. Fight until one of you can't or won't. I can stop the match if I decide it's over. Try not to kill each other." He looked at Naruto. "Especially you." "I will attempt restraint," Naruto said. "Begin." Neji didn't wait. He moved immediately. Gentle fist stance, palms open, every step precise and lethal. He closed the distance in 2 seconds. "You think being the Hokage's son makes you special?" Neji said as he closed in. "Destiny cannot be changed. You were born with power, and you will always have it. I was born into a cage, and I will always be in it. That is the nature of this world." Naruto didn't move. "Fate determines everything," Neji continued, and he was close now, within striking range. "Your birth, your strength, your future. There is no escaping what you are." "Interesting hypothesis," Naruto said. "Test it." Neji struck, gentle fist, palm strike to the chest, aimed at the heart, designed to close the tenketsu and shut down chakra flow. A killing blow in all but name. His palm hit a pillow, a big, fluffy, absurdly comfortable-looking white pillow that materialized in front of Naruto's chest at the exact moment of impact. Neji's palm sank into it with a soft puff sound. The arena went silent. Neji stared at the pillow. The pillow stared back. Not literally, but it felt like it. Neji pulled his hand back and struck again. Different angle. Low strike to the hip, aimed at disrupting the lower chakra network. Pillow, a different one. Rounder, puffier. With what appeared to be a small embroidered kitten on it, Neji's eye twitched. He launched a combination. 3 strikes, chest, shoulder, solar plexus. Each one landing on a pillow that appeared from nowhere. Perfectly positioned, perfectly timed. The crowd started murmuring. Neji's jaw clenched. His Byakugan blazed. He could see it, or rather he couldn't see it. There was no chakra manipulation he could detect. No hand seals, no technique. The pillows were just there, as if reality itself had decided that Neji's attacks deserved a softer landing. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. The ultimate Hyuga technique, the defining move of the gentle fist style. 64 strikes in perfect sequence, each one targeting a specific tenketsu, designed to completely shut down an opponent's chakra network in seconds. Neji blurred forward. 2 palms. 2 pillows, small, throw pillow size. They popped into existence like bubbles. 4 palms, 4 pillows, slightly larger. One of them was shaped like a star. 8 palms, 8 pillows. They were getting bigger and fluffier. The arena floor was starting to accumulate a small mountain of absurd softness. 16 palms, 16 pillows. One of them was a body pillow, an actual full-length, human-sized body pillow that materialized in mid-air and caught all 4 of Neji's strikes before drifting gently to the ground. The crowd was not murmuring anymore. The crowd was losing it. Kiba was howling, actual howling, like a wolf, because he could not contain his delight. Tenten, Neji's own teammate, had her face buried in her hands because she was laughing so hard she was crying. Rock Lee, who idolized Neji's skill, was watching with his mouth open wide enough to park a cart in. 32 palms! The pillows were now the size of mattresses. They were raining from the sky. The arena was becoming a bedding store's fever dream. Genma had to dodge a falling cushion shaped like a crescent moon. Neji was screaming. Not words, just sound. The pure, incandescent rage of a prodigy whose life-defining technique was being defeated by interior decorating. 64 palms. The final sequence. Every ounce of skill. Every year of training. Every drop of bitterness and pain and destiny-fueled conviction channeled into 32 strikes in 2 seconds. 64 pillows materialized in a perfect spherical formation around Naruto, catching each strike with a puff, a whomp, and a gentle deflection. The final pillow, the 64th, was enormous, king-sized. It caught Neji's last palm strike and held it, soft and yielding, like a hug. Neji stood there, panting, surrounded by a fortress of cushions, his hands buried in the final pillow. The arena was in chaos. Laughter, disbelief, gasps. In the Kaji box, the third Hokage's pipe had fallen out of his mouth. Minato had his face in his hand. He was either laughing or crying. Probably both. Naruto stood untouched in the center of the pillow fortress. He hadn't moved. Not once. His hands were still in his pockets. His expression was mild. Then he walked forward. The pillows parted for him like a crowd making way for a king. He walked through them, each one drifting aside, until he stood directly in front of Neji. Neji looked up at him. The Byakugan was still active. Through it, he could see Naruto's chakra, which wasn't chakra at all, but light. Infinite, warm, terrifying light that extended in every direction without end. "You desire freedom," Naruto said. His voice was different now. The playfulness was gone. What remained was something old and vast and unbearably gentle. Naruto reached out and touched the caged bird seal on Neji's forehead. The seal, that cursed mark, that chain, that instrument of the branch house's subjugation, glowed white. Not green like healing chakra, not blue like regular chakra, white. The same white as Naruto's eyes when the god surfaced, the white of something infinite making contact with something finite. The seal began to move. It peeled away from Neji's skin, slowly, gently, like a bandage being removed from a wound that had healed underneath. The black ink lines of the seal lifted, curled, separated from Neji's forehead and took shape. A butterfly. A small, luminous butterfly made of light formed from the ink and pain and centuries of Hyuga cruelty that the seal represented. It spread its wings, delicate, intricate, beautiful, and rose into the air. The crowd watched it. 50,000 people, silent, watching a butterfly made of broken chains rise above the arena. It dissolved into the sunlight. Neji fell to his knees. His forehead was bare. Clean skin, no mark, no seal, no cage. For the first time in his life, Neji Hyuga was free, and he had absolutely no idea what to do with that. The worldview he'd built, the fortress of destiny, the certainty that some people were born to suffer and others were born to rule, crumbled. Not because Naruto argued against it, not because Naruto proved it wrong through effort or struggle, but because Naruto simply removed the evidence. No cage, no seal, no destiny. Just a boy on his knees in a field of pillows, crying. Neji Hyuga, who never cried, who had steeled himself against emotion since his father's death, wept. Open, crying. The kind that comes from a lifetime of held back everything finally breaking free. The arena was silent. 50,000 people watching a teenager cry, and not one of them made a sound. Because every single person there, even the ones who didn't know what the caged bird seal was, even the civilians who had never heard of the Hyuga branch house, understood what they were seeing. They were watching someone be set free. In the Hyuga section of the stands, Hiyashi Hyuga, Neiji's uncle, the head of the main house, the man whose brother died wearing that seal, was gripping the railing so hard the wood was cracking. Hinata, sitting beside him, was crying too, but she was smiling. Naruto looked down at Neji. Fate, Naruto said, is a story people tell when they want suffering to have meaning. Sometimes suffering just hurts, and sometimes he offered Neji his hand. It ends. Neji took his hand. Naruto pulled him up. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. Gemma's voice echoed across the stadium, but the crowd didn't cheer. Not yet. They were still processing. Then Hinata stood up. She started clapping, one person clapping in a stadium of 50,000. Then Rock Lee stood. He clapped too, with the enthusiasm of a man who had just witnessed the flames of youth burn brighter than ever before. Then Tenten. Then Kiba. Then Shikamaru, who never clapped for anything. It spread like a wave. The applause built, slow, then fast, then thunderous. The entire stadium on its feet. Not for the fight. The fight had been absurd. For the moment after. For the butterfly. For the boy on his knees learning what freedom felt like. Naruto walked out of the arena with pillows still scattered across the floor behind him. That was insane, Sakura yelled when he reached the competitor's area. I found it informative. You turned his 64 palms into a pillow fight. The gentle fist is an elegant technique. I simply provided it with appropriate opponents. Sasuke said nothing. He was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, staring at the arena floor where Neji was still standing, touching his bare forehead, looking lost and new. He removed a seal that's been on the Hyuga for centuries, Sasuke thought. Like it was nothing. Like it was an afterthought. What could he remove from me? The curse mark on Sasuke's neck, the one Orochimaru had tried and failed to place, tingled, not because it was there. Orochimaru had never gotten the chance. It tingled because Sasuke wanted it to. Because wanting power, any power from any source, was becoming the only thing he understood. The seed was a vine now, and it was wrapping around everything. The rest of the tournament proceeded. Fights were fought, but the buzz in the stadium, the thing everyone was talking about, the thing that would be discussed in bars and council rooms and around dinner tables for years, was Naruto Uzumaki and the butterfly made of broken chains. Then the invasion started. Sand and sound, Orochimaru's plan, set in motion before his encounter with Naruto in the Forest of Death, too complex to abort even after his breakdown. The genjutsu fell over the stadium, feathers drifting down, civilians slumping into sleep, ninja fighting it off, explosions at the walls. Sound and sand forces pouring through breaches, the signal going up, attack. In the Kage box, the Kazekage stood and grabbed Hiruzen Sarutobi. Except it wasn't the Kazekage. Orochimaru's face emerged from behind the stolen face like a snake shedding skin, but something was wrong. Orochimaru's hands were shaking. His smile was there, but it was broken. The invasion was happening, his plan was in motion, but the architect was compromised. The vision Naruto had shown him in the forest had not faded, it had grown. Every night, when he closed his eyes, he saw infinity. He saw how small he was. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't focus. He was running an invasion on autopilot while his mind screamed in existential horror. Naruto stood in the arena. Around him, the world was going to war. Anbu clashing with sound ninjas on the rooftops. Sand puppeteers deploying in the streets. Civilians being evacuated through underground tunnels. The Hokage fighting Orochimaru on the roof of the arena behind a barrier erected by the Sound Forgara. The one-tailed Jinchuriki, the weapon of the sand. He was transforming, sand armor covering his body, Shukaku's influence seeping through, his already unstable mind fracturing under the pressure. Mother wants blood! Gaara screamed, sand erupting from his gourd in waves. Mother wants blood! Sasuke engaged him, Chidori blazing. He'd learned it from Kakashi during the month's break, the only useful thing to come out of the preparation period. He drove it into Gaara's sand armor, cracked through, drew blood. Gaara lost it. Full Shukaku transformation. The one tail erupted from Gaara's body like a sand monster given form, massive, insane, laughing with a voice that shook buildings. Finally free, Shukaku howled. Sasuke was out, spent. The Chidori had taken everything he had. Sakura was protecting him. Naruto looked up at Shukaku. Shukaku looked down at Naruto. The Tanuki's insane grin faltered. The same instinct that had stopped the Nine Tails 12 years ago, the same primal, cosmic recognition that something vastly, incomprehensibly greater was present, surfaced in Shukaku's ancient mind. What? What are you? Shukaku stammered. I am Naruto, Naruto said, and you are being very loud. He raised one finger, pointed at Shukaku. Sleep. Shukaku collapsed, the entire tailed beast. The one tail, a creature of living sand and ancient chakra, dropped like a marionette with cut strings. The sand form crumbled. Gaara's body emerged from the wreckage, unconscious, falling. Naruto caught him with a gesture. Gaara floated gently to the ground and lay still, sleeping, peacefully. For the first time in his life, Gaara was sleeping without nightmares. Naruto looked at Gaara's sleeping face. You have a demon inside you that keeps you awake. That is unkind. He placed his hand on Gaara's forehead. I am adjusting the seal. Shukaku will be quieter now. Not gone, just polite. Inside Gaara's mindscape, Shukaku, the one-tailed tanuki, was now sitting in a corner. Quiet, contemplating its life choices. Very, very polite. Meanwhile, on the roof, Orochimaru's invasion was falling apart. Not because of strategy, not because Konoha's forces were overwhelming, because Orochimaru himself was falling apart. He'd summoned the first and second Hokage using Edo Tensei, the reanimation jutsu, corpses bound with the souls of the dead. But his control was shaky. His focus was fractured. The first and second were fighting Hiruzen, but at half strength because Orochimaru couldn't maintain the jutsu properly. Hiruzen was holding his own, old, tired, but still the god of shinobi. Then the barrier flickered. The sound for maintaining the purple barrier that isolated the rooftop battle felt something. A presence, a pressure, like gravity doubling. Naruto walked through the barrier. He didn't break it. He didn't dispel it. He walked through it the way you walk through an open door. The barrier, a technique that had taken 4 specialized ninjas to create and maintain, simply did not apply to him. The Sound Force stared. Their barrier was their trump card, their absolute defense. Nothing was supposed to pass through it. Naruto passed through it and said, "Excuse me." He walked onto the rooftop. Hiruzen was bleeding. The reanimated first and second were pressing him. Orochimaru was laughing, but the laugh was hollow, cracked, a man performing sanity for an audience. Naruto looked at the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, the god of shinobi, resurrected and bound. You are dead, Naruto said, but your soul is being used as a puppet. I find this disrespectful. He snapped his fingers. The Edo Tensei broke. Not on one target, on both. Hashirama and Tobirama Senju's reanimated bodies crumbled to dust. Their souls released. The jutsu unraveled at a fundamental level. Orochimaru's mouth fell open. That jutsu took me decades to perfect. It was an elegant application of forbidden sealing technique combined with sacrificial summoning arrays, Naruto said. But it binds souls against their will, and I find that philosophically objectionable. Hiruzen, bleeding and panting, looked at Naruto. Son of Minato, you should not be here. And yet, Naruto said simply. Orochimaru stared at Naruto. Those yellow eyes that had seen decades of horror and ambition and calculated cruelty were wide. The same eyes that had wept in the forest of death. You, Orochimaru whispered, you ruined me. I showed you the truth. If the truth ruined you, that is not my responsibility. Orochimaru lunged. Sword of Kusanagi extended from his mouth. The legendary blade, capable of cutting anything, forged in the realm of the summons. He drove it at Naruto's chest with every ounce of speed and skill and desperate fury he had left. The blade touched Naruto's chest and stopped. Naruto looked down at it. The tip of the sword was resting against his white jumpsuit, indenting the fabric slightly, unable to penetrate. Kusanagi, Naruto said. Named after the legendary sword of myth. Impressive craftsmanship. But a sword is only as strong as the reality it exists in, and the reality immediately around me is flexible. He grasped the blade with 2 fingers. It shattered. The sword of Kusanagi, the indestructible blade, broke into pieces that dissolved into light before they hit the ground. Orochimaru staggered back. His hands were empty. His invasion was crumbling. His reanimations were gone. His summon was an earthworm somewhere in the forest of death. His legendary sword was dust. Leave, Naruto said, not with anger, not with killing intent, with the quiet, immovable certainty of a being that was offering a choice it had no obligation to offer. Orochimaru left. He retreated with the sound for. They vanished. The barrier fell. The sound and sand forces, leaderless, scattered. The invasion was over. Konoha stood, battered, bleeding, but standing. Naruto stood on the rooftop and watched the village below him, the fires being put out, the wounded being carried to hospitals, the ninja returning from battle with blood on their flak jackets and relief in their eyes. Hiruzen sat down heavily. He was old, he was hurt, but he was alive, which was more than he'd expected when the morning started. Thank you, Naruto. You are welcome, Lord Third. I find your village worth preserving. Just the village? Naruto looked at him. The people, the village's architecture, the people are the point. Hiruzen smiled. You know, you sound more like your mother every day. Something flickered across Naruto's face. Something soft and raw and not at all cosmic. I wish I had met her, he said. You did. She held you for 11 minutes before she died. She told you she loved you. She told you to eat your vegetables. She made your father promise to keep you safe. 11 minutes. 11 minutes. Naruto looked at the sky. In 11 minutes, a star can be born. A universe can die. An infinite being can decide that 11 minutes of a mortal woman's love is worth compressing himself into a finite body. Hiruzen's pipe had gone out. He didn't relight it. He just sat there in the ash and the aftermath and let those words exist. The weeks after the invasion were rebuilding, physical and emotional. The alliance between Sand and Leaf was reestablished. Gaara, who woke up from the most peaceful sleep of his life, returned to Suna changed. He wasn't fixed. You don't fix a lifetime of isolation and murder with one good nap. But something had shifted. The voice in his head was quieter. The sand didn't move on its own anymore. He could think. He could breathe. He sent a letter to Naruto. It said, "Thank you. I don't know what you did, but the silence is beautiful." Naruto kept the letter. It was the first letter anyone had ever sent him. But the real story, the one that had been building since the academy, since the bell test, since the forest of death, since the Chunin exams, was Sasuke. Sasuke Uchiha was unraveling. He'd watched Naruto do the impossible over and over. He'd watched casual omnipotence applied to every situation. He'd watched legends brought low and curses broken and reality itself bent like a paperclip. And every time, every single time, the same question burned hotter. Why can't I have that? Not Naruto's power. Sasuke wasn't stupid enough to think he could match that. But Naruto's certainty, Naruto's completeness, the way Naruto moved through the world without doubt, without fear, without the gaping wound in his chest where his family used to be. The whisper started. Sound ninja, remnants of Orochimaru's network, slithering into Konoha's shadows. Not recruiting for Orochimaru. He was too broken for that now. Recruiting for Sasuke, feeding his doubt, reminding him that Itachi was still out there, that the answers he needed wouldn't be found in Konoha, that he was wasting his potential on a team with someone who would never let him be the strongest. Sasuke resisted for weeks. Then he stopped resisting. He left at night. Sakura found him at the village gate. The scene, the bench, the moonlight, the goodbye, but different, because Sakura had spent months with Naruto, and Naruto's blunt cosmic honesty had rubbed off on her. If you leave, Sakura said, and her voice was steady, even though tears were running down her face, it's not because you need power. It's because you're afraid. Sasuke stopped. You're afraid that Naruto can give you what you want, and that it won't be enough. You're afraid that even if you kill Itachi, even if you restore your clan, even if you become the strongest ninja who ever lived, the hole will still be there. And you'd rather run towards something you can never reach than stand still and feel the empty. Sasuke's back was to her. His fists were clenched. You don't know anything, he said. I know you, not as well as Naruto does, but I know you're in pain, and I know leaving won't fix it. Nothing will fix it, maybe, but at least here, you're not alone. Sasuke walked through the gate. He didn't look back. Sakura collapsed on the bench and cried. The retrieval team was assembled. Shikamaru, Kiba, Neji, Choji, and Lee. Standard canon lineup. They were good. They were determined. They were also completely irrelevant. Because Naruto was going, he didn't ask permission. He didn't wait for the team. He left the village alone, on foot, walking at a normal pace, hands in the pockets of his white jumpsuit. The retrieval team was an hour ahead of him, already fighting the Sound Four in the forests between Konoha and the border. Naruto walked. The Sound Four, Jirobo, Kidomaru, Sakun, and Ukon, Tayuya, had staggered themselves along the route, each one taking on a member of the retrieval team. In canon, these fights were brutal, multi-chapter affairs where the good guys barely survived. Naruto walked past each fight. As he passed Choji and Jirobo, he glanced at the battle. Jirobo was in his cursed seal state, massive and powered up. Choji was exhausted, burned through his soldier pills. One more hit would have ended it. Naruto didn't stop walking, but as he passed, the curse mark on Jirobo's neck cracked, like glass. Like a flaw in a diamond hit at exactly the right angle. The mark fractured and Jirobo's power cut in half instantly, the cursed chakra draining out of him like water from a broken cup. Choji, gasping, looked up. Jirobo staggered, confused, weakened. Choji drove his fist into Jirobo's gut with everything he had left. Jirobo went down. Choji collapsed. He'd won. Barely, but he'd won. He looked toward the road where Naruto had been, but the white jumpsuit was already gone. Same with Neji and Kidomaru. The spider user in his level 2 form, firing arrows that could punch through stone. Neji bleeding, exhausted, his newly uncaged forehead bloody from a near miss. As Naruto passed, Kidomaru's web disintegrated. Every thread, every trap, every structural support for his attacks dissolved into nothing. Kidomaru hung in the air for one confused second before gravity remembered him and he crashed to the forest floor. Neji struck. Gentle fist. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. The real thing. No pillows. Kidomaru went down hard. Neji, panting, looked toward the road. A flicker of white between the trees. Thank you, Neji whispered. Naruto kept walking. Kimimaro appeared. Bone user, Orochimaru's most loyal servant. A dying man fighting with the fury of someone who has nothing left to lose. His dance of the seedling fern erupted from the ground. A forest of bone spikes, deadly, inescapable. Naruto walked through the bone field. The spikes bent around him, curving away from his body, like plants bending towards sunlight, except in reverse. Reality itself accommodated his passage. He didn't engage Kimimaro. Lee and Gaara were there. Gaara had come from Suna, his sand calm, his mind clear. The two of them faced Kimimaro together. Handle this, Naruto said as he passed. Not an order, an observation, a statement of trust. Gaara nodded. Lee gave a thumbs up. Kimimaro died. Not because of Naruto, because his body had always been dying, and no curse mark could fix that. He crumbled in the bone field, surrounded by his own creations, and his last thought was of Orochimaru, the broken net weeping version of Orochimaru, who could no longer even remember why he'd sent Kimimaro to fight. Naruto reached the Valley of the End. 2 massive statues, Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju. Stone titans facing each other across a waterfall, frozen in a battle that defined the ninja world. The symbolism was almost too heavy to breathe around. Sasuke was standing on Madara's head. Naruto stood on Hashirama's. The waterfall roared between them. Mist rose from the basin. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of orange and red and gold. You came, Sasuke said. You knew I would. I knew you'd come. I didn't know if you'd try to stop me. I have not decided yet. Sasuke laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. That's the problem with you. You never decide. You just watch, you study, you turn everything into data, but you never commit. I commit to understanding. Understanding isn't enough, Sasuke's voice cracked, the carefully controlled exterior fracturing. I need more than understanding. I need power. I need answers. I need to look my brother in the eye and kill him? Yes! And then what? Sasuke went quiet. After Itachi is dead, Naruto continued, his voice carrying across the water, what desire remains? What drives Sasuke Uchiha when the fuel for his hatred is ash? I am genuinely asking, because of all the things I have studied in this world, chakra, jutsu, war, love, grief, desire is the most complex, and yours is the most intense I have encountered. Don't psychoanalyze me. I am not psychoanalyzing. I am asking. As someone who has never desired anything, asking someone who desires everything. Sasuke's Sharingan activated. 3 tome, spinning. Fight me. No. Fight me. No. Fighting you serves no purpose. I would not be harmed. You would not be helped. It would be an exercise in futility, dressed up as conflict. Sasuke jumped. He crossed the distance between the statues in a single leap. Cursed mark level 2 erupted from his body. Not Orochimaru's mark. Sasuke didn't have that. But he had something. The Sound 4 had given him an experimental seal, a lesser version, and Sasuke's hatred and willpower had pushed it beyond its design. His skin darkened. Hand-shaped wings erupted from his back. Dark chakra pulsed around him. He charged Chidori. The sound of 1,000 birds filled the valley. Lightning crackled along Sasuke's arm, blue, white, and screaming. This was everything Sasuke had. Every hour of training, every ounce of gifted talent, every drop of Uchiha blood, concentrated into one attack aimed at the one person who had never taken him seriously. Chidori! He drove it forward. Naruto caught it, bare hand, open palm. The Chidori A-rank assassination technique, the signature jutsu of Kakashi Hatake, capable of punching through anything, hit Naruto's palm and stopped. The lightning crawled up Naruto's fingers. It crackled and popped and cast sharp shadows across both their faces. Sasuke's arm shook. He was pushing with everything. His wings beat, his muscles strained. The curse mark burned. Naruto's hand didn't move. The lightning died. The Chidori fizzled, sparked, and went out. And in Naruto's palm, where the jutsu had been, there was a flower, a single white flower, a lily, perfect and delicate, blooming from nothing. Naruto held it out like a gift. Sasuke stared at it. "Stop mocking me." The scream echoed across the valley. It bounced off the stone faces of Madara and Hashirama. It carried the weight of every sleepless night, every memory of blood, every time Sasuke had looked at Naruto and felt the unfathomable gulf between them. Naruto's expression changed. The warmth drained out. The curiosity faded. The childlike wonder that had defined Naruto Uzumaki since he first walked into a classroom evaporated like morning dew. What remained was the beyonder. His eyes went white. Not a flicker, a full, sustained, absolute white that had no iris, no pupil, no humanity. His blonde hair lifted as if gravity had released it. The air around him didn't shimmer, it stilled, like the universe was holding its breath. "I am not mocking you." His voice dropped. Not in volume, in depth. It sounded like it was coming from everywhere, from the rocks, from the water, from the air, from inside Sasuke's own bones. "I am studying you." Sasuke took a step back. The curse mark retreated on its own, the dark chakra pulling inward, shrinking, because even the curse seal understood what it was facing. Naruto reached out and grabbed reality. There is no better way to describe it. He reached out with one hand and grabbed the fabric of the world like a man grabbing a curtain. And he pulled. The valley of the end vanished. They were on the moon, gray dust. Silence so complete it was louder than any sound. The earth hung in the sky, blue and white and impossibly beautiful. Sasuke gasped, no air. His lungs seized. Naruto waved a hand and air existed around them, a bubble, enough to breathe, not enough to feel safe. "What?" Sasuke started. Naruto pulled again. The moon vanished. They were inside a volcano, the core. Magma surrounded them, heat that should have vaporized them instantly. Light so intense it burned through closed eyelids. Sasuke screamed. Naruto held another bubble, cool, breathable, but surrounded by the heart of a mountain. Pull, a void. Absolute darkness, no light, no sound, no direction, no up, no down, no forward, no back. Just the two of them, floating in nothing, and the only sensory input was the sound of their own heartbeats. Sasuke's breathing was ragged, fast, panicked. His Sharingan was spinning wildly, looking for something to copy, something to predict, something to nothing. Just nothing. "I can do anything," Naruto said. His voice in the void was small and enormous at the same time. "Anything, Sasuke. That is not a boast. It is not an exaggeration. It is a simple statement of capability. I can give you Itachi's head right now." Sasuke's breath hitched. "I can pull him from wherever he is. I can freeze him. I can place his neck beneath your blade. I can make him feel every ounce of pain he caused you. I can make him beg." Sasuke was shaking. "I can resurrect the Uchiha clan. Not every single one. Your mother, your father, your cousins, your neighbors. Every face from every memory you've tried to bury. I can rebuild the compound. I can erase the massacre from history so thoroughly that only you and I would remember it ever happened." Tears were streaming down Sasuke's face. In the void, in the dark where no one could see, Sasuke Uchiha was crying. "I can turn Konoha into dust and build you a new empire. I can give you the Manjikyu Sharingan without the trauma. I can give you the Rinnegan. I can make you the strongest being in this world by a margin so wide that no one would ever challenge you again." Sasuke's voice was a whisper, broken. "Why? Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to hear it. You need to know that every single thing you're chasing, the power, the revenge, the restoration, all of it is within my ability to grant. Right now, no cost, No conditions. All you have to do is ask. Silence in the void. 2 heartbeats. Ask me, Sasuke. The silence stretched. Sasuke's tears floated in the zero gravity of nothingness. Small spheres of salt water drifting in the dark. He opened his mouth and closed it. Because Sasuke Uchiha, for all his hatred, for all his damage, for all the poison that lived in his blood and his memories, understood something in that moment. Something he couldn't articulate but felt in every cell. If Naruto gave him everything he wanted, it wouldn't be his. It wouldn't mean anything. The revenge wouldn't satisfy. The resurrection wouldn't heal. The power wouldn't fill the void. Because he wouldn't have earned any of it. He would just be another thing that Naruto had done. Another experiment. Another data point. And Sasuke Uchiha would rather burn alive than be someone else's footnote. No, Sasuke whispered. Naruto's white eyes softened, just a fraction. But that would ruin the story, Naruto whispered back. The words were almost too quiet to hear. Like a confession, like a secret between the only 2 people in an empty universe, he reached out and tapped Sasuke's forehead with 2 fingers, gently. The way Itachi used to, Sasuke's eyes went wide. Recognition, memory, pain. And then his eyes closed, and he fell into the deepest and most dreamless sleep of his life. Naruto caught him before he drifted into the void. He pulled reality back like a curtain. The valley of the end reformed around them. Water, stone, the statues. The setting sun, now almost gone, the last light bleeding from the sky. Naruto shifted Sasuke onto his back, the way you carry a sleeping friend. Sasuke's head lolled against Naruto's shoulder. His dark hair fell across Naruto's white jumpsuit. Naruto stepped onto the water and began to walk. His steps didn't make ripples. The water surface held him like it was solid ground. Behind him, the waterfall roared. The stone faces of Madara and Hashirama stared at each other across the divide, frozen in their eternal argument. Naruto looked up at the sky. The stars were coming out, not just the ones visible to human eyes. Naruto saw all of them. Every star in every galaxy. Every light in the observable universe and the unobservable universe and the universes beyond that. He saw the cosmic web, the filaments of dark matter connecting galaxy clusters across billions of light years. He saw the microwave background radiation, the echo of the universe's birth. He saw it all, simultaneously, in perfect detail, the way he always had, the way he always would. He was everything. He had been everything. And he had compressed himself into this body, this boy, this life, because he wanted to understand one thing: desire. He had watched Sasuke desire revenge. He had watched Neji desire freedom. He had watched Haku desire purpose. He had watched Zabuza desire redemption. He had watched Gaara desire sleep. He had watched Sakura desire love. He had watched Kakashi desire forgiveness. He had watched Hinata desire courage. He had watched an entire village desire peace. And he had cataloged every instance, filed it away, analyzed it, modeled it, understood it intellectually with a precision that no human mind could match. But he had not felt it. He had not desired. Because you cannot desire something when you can have everything. Desire requires lack. Wanting requires not having. And Naruto Uzumaki, the Beyonder incarnate, had never not had anything. Until now. Walking across the water, carrying his unconscious friend toward a village full of imperfect, fragile, temporary people who would one day die. All of them. Every single one. Even Minato, even Kakashi, even Sakura, even the Ramen Man. Naruto felt something he had never felt in all his infinite existence. Loss. Not actual loss. Not yet, but the anticipation of it. The pre-echo. The understanding that these people, these ridiculous, wonderful, terrified, brave, stupid, brilliant, small, enormous people, were mortal. They would end, and there was nothing he could do about it. He could prevent their deaths. He could make them immortal. He could freeze this moment in time and live in it forever. But that would change them. That would remove the very thing that made them what they were. The urgency, the desperation, the fierce, burning need to matter before the clock ran out. He could not desire what they had without accepting what they lost. And that acceptance, the willingness to love something temporary, knowing it was temporary, choosing it anyway, that was the thing he had come here to learn. The thing his infinite existence had never contained. The thing that made mortal life not just interesting, but sacred. He didn't understand it yet. Not fully. Maybe not ever, but for the first time standing between the stars and the water, carrying a broken boy who had refused a god's gift because his pride meant more than his pain. Naruto Uzumaki wanted to understand, and wanting was new, and new was the only thing that infinite had never been. He walked home. The gates of Konoha appeared in the distance. Torchlight, shouting, people running toward the gate. Sakura, her pink hair flying, screaming Sasuke's name. Kakashi, moving fast. Minato, his white cloak billowing. Naruto walked through the gate with Sasuke on his back. He is unharmed, Naruto said. He chose to leave. I am returning him. He will need to make his own choices about what comes next. And you? Minato asked, looking at his son with those worried, loving, completely outmatched eyes. Naruto looked at his father, at the village, at the stars above. I am choosing to stay, Naruto said, for now, until I understand. Understand what? Naruto smiled, small, genuine, the most human expression he had ever made. Everything that I am not. Sakura took Sasuke from Naruto's back. She was crying. Kakashi helped. They carried him toward the hospital. Naruto stood at the gate alone. Behind him, the village. Warm light. Familiar sounds. The smell of ramen from Ichiraku, still open, always open, because Tochi believed that someone always needed a bowl at midnight. Above him, the universe. Cold, vast, silent. The infinite that he had been and could return to at any moment. The everything that contained nothing worth keeping. Between the two, a boy in a white jumpsuit. Blonde hair, blue eyes, hands in his pockets. Not a god pretending to be human. Not a human pretending to be a god. Something new. Something the omniverse had never produced before. An infinite being learning to be finite. A complete entity discovering incompleteness. An answer searching for a question it had never thought to ask. Naruto Uzumaki walked toward the ramen shop. The universe, for the first time in its existence, did not know what he would do next. And that was the most interesting thing that had ever happened. The stool creaked when he sat down. It was a normal creak. Wood under weight. Physics doing its job. Nothing cosmic about it. Naruto placed his hands on the counter and looked at the menu he'd memorized years ago. The lantern swayed in the warm night air. Somewhere behind the village walls, the retrieval team was being debriefed. Sasuke was being checked into the hospital, and a dozen people were trying to write reports about events that no report could contain. Here, there was steam and pork and an old man who made noodles. Tochi looked up from his pot. His face did that thing it always did when Naruto walked in. The quick flash of something primal and uncomfortable, immediately buried under years of practice and genuine affection. Late one tonight? Tucci said. Yes. The usual? Please. Tucci ladled broth, pulled noodles, sliced pork with the kind of knife skill that would have impressed most genin. The bowl came together in under 2 minutes. A practiced ritual, repeated thousands of times, muscle memory so deep it was almost spiritual. He set it in front of Naruto. Steam rose. The broth surface trembled with the vibration of the street outside. The distant shouts of medical teams, the hum of a village that had almost lost something important and was still figuring out how to feel about the fact that it hadn't. Naruto stared at the bowl. He had eaten thousands of bowls of ramen. He had analyzed the molecular composition of the broth on the first visit and identified every amino acid responsible for the umami profile. He knew, on a chemical level, exactly why it tasted good. He could have replicated it, improved it even, optimized the sodium balance, enhanced the collagen extraction, with a thought. He picked up the chopsticks. He ate. And for the first time, he didn't think about any of that. He didn't analyze. He didn't catalog. He just ate ramen because it was warm and he was tired. Not physically tired. That was impossible. Tired in the way that a thing with no edges gets tired of having no edges. Tired the way infinity gets tired of itself. The noodles were good. They were always good. Tochi watched him eat. The old man had seen a lot of things in his years behind this counter. He'd served ninja who came in covered in blood and ordered extra egg like nothing happened. He'd served grieving widows and celebrating genin and everything in between. But Naruto was different. Naruto always ate alone. Even when the counter was full, there was a space around the kid. Not because people avoided him, but because the universe itself seemed to give him room. Tochi wiped his hands on his apron, came around the counter and sat on the stool next to Naruto. Naruto looked at him, surprised. Actually surprised. The look on his face was so human, so plainly, simply startled, that it would have made anyone who knew what he was deeply uncomfortable. Slow night, Tochi said, which was a lie. It was the night after a village-wide crisis. There was nothing slow about it. Mind if I sit? No. They sat together. Tochi didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask about the retrieval mission or the explosions people heard from the Valley of the End, or why Naruto's jumpsuit had a smudge of dirt on one shoulder that looked like it came from carrying someone. You know what my old man told me about ramen? Tochi said. I do not. He said the broth is the soul. Everything else, the noodles, the pork, the toppings, that's personality. But the broth is what holds it all together. You can have great toppings and bad broth, and the whole thing falls apart. But if the broth is right, everything works. Naruto looked at his bowl, the broth golden and clear and gently fragrant. That is a metaphor, Naruto said. Maybe, or maybe it's just about soup. Tochi smiled. Either way, the kid who's been eating at my counter since he was 4 years old deserves to not eat alone sometimes. Something moved behind Naruto's eyes, something vast and old that had never been told it deserved anything, because it had never needed to be told, because it had always been everything, and everything doesn't need permission. Thank you, Tucci. Don't mention it. You want seconds? Yes. Tucci went back behind the counter. Naruto ate his second bowl slower than the first, not analyzing, not cataloging, just present, just here. The stool, the steam, the sound of broth being ladled. The smallest, warmest, most ordinary moment in the world. A shadow dropped onto the stool to his left. Silver hair, mask, one eye visible, curved in that fake smile that Naruto had long since learned to read as armor. Kakashi didn't speak. He sat. Tochi, without being asked, placed a bowl in front of him. Kakashi looked at it, pulled his mask down with the speed of a man who had turned eating in public into a covert operation. Ate 3 bites, pulled the mask back up. The entire sequence took 4 seconds. Tochi saw his face and immediately forgot it, the way everyone always did, because Kakashi's face had apparently developed its own defense mechanism against being remembered. They sat in silence for 2 full minutes. The Hokage wants to debrief you, Kakashi said. Naruto looked at him, looked at his ramen, looked back at Kakashi. After ramen, Kakashi did not argue. He ordered a second bowl for himself. They ate together in the warm, quiet, steam-filled dark, and it was the most normal thing either of them had done in weeks. 2.5 years passed. Here is what Naruto Uzumaki did with that time. He did not leave the village to train with Jiraiya. Jiraiya arrived at the Uzumaki household on a Tuesday morning with a backpack, a travel itinerary, and the boundless confidence of a man who had trained the 4th Hokage and was fully prepared to do it again. He found Naruto in the backyard, sitting cross-legged on the grass, having what appeared to be a negotiation with a family of raccoons. "Kid!" Jiraiya boomed. "Pack your bags. We're going on a training trip. 3 years. I'll teach you everything I know. Sage mode. Advanced sealing. The Rasengan variations your father never finished. You and me, the open road, the..." "No." Jiraiya's mouth stayed open. The raccoons looked at him with mild contempt. "What do you mean, no? I'm Jiraiya of the Sannin. I trained your father. This is the deal. The master takes the student on a journey, and I learned every technique you know. I have also learned every technique you don't know. There is nothing on the road that I require." Jiraiya stared at him. "That's impossible. There are techniques I've never shown anyone. Personal jutsu. Things I invented in my own." Naruto held up one hand. "Rasengan, planetary ring." A sphere of rotating chakra appeared in his palm. But instead of spinning in place, it generated 3 orbiting rings of compressed wind that hummed with a frequency that made Jiraiya's molars vibrate. The technique was something Jiraiya had sketched in a private notebook 15 years ago, deemed theoretically impossible, and never attempted. How? Toad oil bullet, refined. Naruto opened his mouth and a perfectly controlled stream of toad oil arced 6 feet into the air, formed a helix, and splashed gently into the grass. Jiraiya hadn't used that technique since a mission in the Land of Rain 20 years prior. But hermit mode, incomplete draft. Naruto's eyes shifted, toad pupil, orange pigmentation, and then shifted back. He'd activated and deactivated Sage mode in under a second, something that had taken Jiraiya 6 months of sitting still on a mountain to achieve. Your version has an asymmetry in the natural energy intake. Naruto added helpfully. The left channel draws 12% more than the right. It's why your face always starts turning toad-like on the left side first. I can fix that if you want. Jiraiya sat down on the grass. He did not speak for 40 minutes. The raccoons left. Jiraiya eventually accepted that the training trip was off. He went on his intelligence-gathering mission alone, researching the Akatsuki, building his spy network. Before he left, he stood at the village gate and looked at Naruto. "Your father was the most talented student I ever had," Jiraiya said. "He made me feel like I'd actually done something right in my life." "And me?" Jiraiya rubbed the back of his neck. "You make me feel like the universe is playing a practical joke and I'm the punchline. I find that endearing." "Of course you do." Jiraiya left. He would send letters. Naruto would read them. It was in its way a relationship, not master and student, something more like a man shouting observations into a canyon and hearing them come back rearranged into better sentences. During the 2.5 years, Naruto stayed in Konoha and did whatever he wanted. This was simultaneously the most boring and the most terrifying sentence anyone in village leadership had ever had to process. He spent 3 months in the forest outside the village walls, sitting among the trees, talking to animals, not in some Disney metaphor way, literally talking. He would sit with a deer for 4 hours and then report to Minato at dinner that deer had complex social hierarchies based on antler symmetry, and that the largest buck in the Nara forest was, quote, profoundly unhappy with his marriage. He spent 2 weeks reorganizing the Konoha library. The librarians arrived on a Monday morning to find every scroll recatalogued. The old system, by rank, by element, by classification, was gone. In its place, Naruto had organized every scroll by what he called emotional intent. Combat scrolls were filed under anger, productive, and anger, wasteful. Medical scrolls were under compassion, technical. Sealing scrolls were under fear, controlled. Forbidden techniques were in a section labeled curiosity, dangerous. The librarians were furious for exactly 1 day. Then they started using the system. It was, against all logic, faster. A chunin looking for a defensive barrier technique went to fear, controlled, and the first scroll she pulled was exactly what she needed. An Ambu looking for interrogation techniques found them under cruelty, professional, and felt personally called out, but also efficiently served. Nobody could explain why it worked. It just did. He sat in on medical training with Tsunade. He observed one lesson. 1. Then he approached Tsunade's desk after class and told her that her mystical palm technique, the signature healing jutsu of the greatest medical ninja alive, contained 17 unnecessary steps. Tsunade's reaction was immediate, volcanic, and loud enough to crack the window. 17? 14 of them are redundant chakra cycling loops that were originally included to compensate for imprecise chakra control. Your control is precise enough to skip them. The other 3 are aesthetic. They make the green glow brighter, but do not contribute to the healing effect. I have been using that technique for 30 years. Yes, you have been 30% slower than necessary for 30 years. That is approximately 9 additional years of healing time lost. I can show you the corrected version. Tsunade stared at him. She was the 5th Hokage now. Minato had stepped down after the invasion, citing the need for a leader whose child was not an ontological event. She was tough. She was brilliant. She had punched the ground hard enough to reshape geography. She looked at Naruto's calm blue eyes and said, "Show me." He showed her. She sat in her chair for 10 minutes afterward, processing the fact that a teenager had just improved her life's work over lunch. "If you tell anyone I cried," she said, "I will launch you into the sun." You cannot, but I appreciate the sentiment. During the time skip, Sasuke left, not immediately, not after the Valley of the End. Naruto had brought him back, unconscious, and Sasuke had woken up in the hospital 2 days later to find Sakura asleep in the chair beside his bed, and Kakashi reading by the window, and the weight of what had happened pressing on his chest like a stone. He stayed for 4 months. He trained. He attended sessions with the village counselor that Tsunade mandated. He ate meals with Team 7 and said very little, and stared at Naruto across the table with an expression that shifted between gratitude and resentment so fast it looked like a strobe light. Then one night, in the dark, he packed a bag and walked out through the village gate. No fight this time. No confrontation at the bench. Just gone. A note on his kitchen table. I need to do this alone. Naruto knew. He had known for weeks. He had watched the decision form in Sasuke's mind the way you watch weather patterns develop on a radar, slowly, inevitably, too complex to redirect without breaking the system. He let him go. Sakura found the note in the morning. She came to Naruto's apartment, furious, terrified, holding the paper in a shaking fist. You could have stopped him, yes. Then why? Because he needs to become something that I cannot make him. If I intervene, the person he builds will always have my fingerprints on it. He needs to be self-authored. He's going to Orochimaru, the man who tried to brand him. Orochimaru is broken. I broke him. Sasuke will learn what he can from the wreckage and then outgrow it. That is his nature. Sakura didn't speak. She was crying. Not the loud kind. The kind where tears just fall and you don't bother wiping them because what's the point? Naruto looked at her and felt something he was still learning to identify. It was uncomfortable. It sat in his chest like a knot in wood, organic, structural, impossible to remove without breaking the whole piece. I'm sorry, he said. Sakura looked at him sharply. In all the years she'd known him, Naruto had never apologized. He had never needed to. I did not choose to let him go because it was easy, Naruto said. I chose it because it was correct. Those are different things. I am learning that. Sakura wiped her eyes. You're the most powerful being in the world and you can't even keep one friend from running away. Power is not the limiting factor. Respect is. I respect his choices, even the bad ones. That's a terrible policy. Yes. Humans call it love. Sakura punched him in the arm. Her knuckles bounced off his bicep with a dull thud, and she yelped and clutched her hand, and through the pain she laughed, because what else could you do? What else could you possibly do? 2.5 years. The village grew. Naruto grew, not in power, which was already infinite, but in something harder to measure. He learned to sit with people without cataloging them. He learned to listen to stories he already knew the ending of and be surprised anyway. He learned that "How are you" was not a request for a diagnostic readout, but an invitation to connect, and that the correct answer was usually fine. Even when you were an omniscient entity experiencing the earliest stages of existential loneliness, he was becoming someone, not something, someone. And then the Akatsuki arrived. Naruto was sitting on the fourth Hokage stone head, his father's face carved into the mountain, perpetually overlooking the village with that calm, determined expression that Minato wore like a second skin. It was early evening. The sky was doing that thing it does in Fire Country where the colors bleed into each other, orange into purple into deep, liquid blue. Naruto sat with his legs dangling over the cliff, hands in his pockets, even while sitting because the jumpsuit's pockets were that good. The bird came from the east, a giant chameleon-skinned eagle, the kind of summon that didn't exist in any natural ecosystem, covered in Rinnegan eyes along its wings and underbelly, an animal path reconnaissance unit. It flew high, higher than most sensor types could detect. Its purpose was to map the village's defenses, identify key targets, and report back to the being controlling it from hundreds of miles away. It flew over Konoha at 30,000 feet. Naruto reached up, not fast, not with any visible effort. He just extended his arm toward the sky the way someone reaches for a book on a high shelf. His hand closed around something. The bird was now in his hand. 30,000 feet of altitude, erased. The giant summon, wings folded, eyes blinking, sat in Naruto's palm like a parakeet that had been gently caught mid-flight. It weighed several tons. Naruto held it like a tennis ball. He looked into the Rinnegan eyes along its wing. Somewhere very far away, in a hidden location in the land of rain, Naruto, the man called Pain, was looking through those eyes. He saw what the bird saw. He saw a blonde teenager holding his reconnaissance summon like a toy, looking directly into the Rinnegan with blue eyes that were, for just a fraction of a second, white. Naruto smiled. Hello, I know what you are. I know what you want. Come if you want. It will be educational. He opened his hand. The bird, trembling, spread its wings and flew. Fast, faster than it had ever flown. The Rinnegan eyes along its body were wide and unblinking, as if the creature itself was in shock. It flew home. In the rain village, in the mechanical tower where life support systems hummed and paper flowers lined the walls, Nagato went still. He was sitting in the walking apparatus. The mechanical frame that supported his emaciated body, the legs and spine that had carried the weight of his god complex for years. The Rinnegan, the legendary eyes of the Sage of Six Paths, stared forward at nothing. Conan was at his side. She had been folding paper. Her hand stopped. "What did you see?" she asked. Nagato's fingers twitched on the armrest of the apparatus. He didn't answer immediately. The Rinnegan could perceive things that no other dojutsu could. It could see chakra in its purest form. It could read the flow of natural energy. It could sense life force and death and the spaces between dimensions. Nagato had used these eyes to wage war, to kill a god candidate, to style himself as the arbiter of peace through pain. What he had seen when Naruto looked back was none of those things. It was like looking at the sun through a telescope. Not dangerous, the eyes could handle any visual input. But what lay behind that smile, behind those blue eyes, was a depth that the Rinnegan simply could not process. The eyes tried to read Naruto's chakra and found no edge to it. They tried to measure his life force and found no beginning. They tried to perceive his dimension and found that he existed in all of them simultaneously. The Rinnegan, for the first time in its legendary history, returned in error. "I don't know," Nagato said finally, "but it saw me back." Conan's hand tightened on the paper flower she was holding. She had known Nagato since they were children. She had watched him become a god. She had never heard his voice sound like that. "Do we continue with the plan?" she asked. Nagato was quiet for a long time. "Yes," he said, "but we save Konoha for last. Before the Akatsuki arc could escalate, before the dominoes could fall in the order that Nato had arranged them, before the world could do the thing it always did, grind toward conflict like a machine that had forgotten how to stop. Naruto made a decision. He decided it was time to get Sasuke. Not because Tsunade ordered it, not because intelligence reports indicated that Orochimaru was preparing to take Sasuke's body, not because anyone asked, because Naruto was sitting on his apartment roof at 3 in the morning, staring at the constellation that humans called the Serpent Bearer, and that he privately found amusingly on the nose, and he felt something he had been feeling more and more lately. A pull. A small, warm, insistent tug in the general direction of someone who was, right now, sleeping fitfully in an underground base in the land of rice fields, dreaming about blood and eyes and a brother's finger tapping his forehead. He stood up. He stepped off the roof. He walked. He did not tell anyone he was leaving. Kakashi noticed anyway. Kakashi always noticed, and appeared at the village gate in his pajamas, with his headband covering the wrong eye and his hair somehow even more defiant of physics than usual. Going somewhere? To get Sasuke. Alone? I am always alone. That is the nature of being everything. But functionally, yes. Kakashi looked at him. The years had softened some of the terror that Naruto's presence used to cause. Not all of it. You never got fully comfortable next to a nuclear reactor that looked like a teenager, but enough that Kakashi could stand here in his pajamas and have a conversation. Want backup? No, but I appreciate the offer. It is very you. Is that a compliment? It is an observation. Whether it's a compliment depends on whether you think being very you is a good thing. Kakashi considered this. I'll tell Tsunade. Tell her I'll be back by breakfast. He walked into the night. The base was 300 miles away, buried under a mountain, sealed behind 14 layers of barriers, guarded by sound ninja and experimental curse-marked soldiers, and traps that Orochimaru had spent decades designing. It was one of the most secure locations in the ninja world. Naruto walked through the front door. There was no front door. The base's entrance was a concealed cave mouth behind a waterfall, sealed with a blood recognition barrier that required Orochimaru's specific DNA signature to open. Naruto walked through it. The barrier parted for him the way water parts for a hot knife. Not broken, not dispelled, just irrelevant. The seal recognized that whatever was walking through it existed on a level where permission was a concept that simply did not apply. The guards inside the first corridor saw him. 2 sound shonen, armed, alert, exactly as paranoid as you'd expect from people who worked for Orochimaru. They drew weapons. Naruto walked past them. They did not attack. They tried. The neural impulse traveled from their brains to their muscles. But somewhere between the intention and the action, their bodies decided, on a level deeper than thought, deeper than training, at the primal base of animal survival, that attacking this person was not something they were going to do. They lowered their weapons, they stepped aside, they pressed themselves against the corridor walls and let him pass. One of them was crying and didn't know why. Naruto walked through 14 corridors, past 32 guards, through 9 sealed doors, and into the central chamber of Orochimaru's base. Without raising a hand, Orochimaru was waiting. He was sitting in his throne, a stone chair in the center of a laboratory that smelled like formaldehyde and ambition. He had rebuilt himself over the past 2.5 years. New body, new techniques, new composure. He had meditated. He had rationalized. He had convinced himself, through sheer force of will, that what had happened in the forest of death was a moment of weakness that would not be repeated. He was wearing a calm smile. His voice was steady. Naruto Uzumaki, I expected you'd come eventually. Then you are better at prediction than I gave you credit for. I've grown since our last meeting. Yes, your chakra reserves are approximately 30% larger. You've developed 2 new body transfer techniques and refined your cellular regeneration to the point where you can survive injuries that would kill any other human. These are genuine achievements. Orochimaru's smile held. I'm glad you noticed. Naruto looked at him. Those blue eyes, calm and clear, and containing something that Orochimaru's rebuilt confidence was desperately trying not to look at directly. Your hands are shaking, Naruto said. The smile cracked. Just a hair. Just enough. You have grown, Naruto continued. You are still afraid. Orochimaru's jaw tightened. His fingers, which were in fact trembling at a frequency too subtle for anyone without omniscient perception to detect, curled into fists. I am not. You are afraid because you remember what I showed you. You have spent 2.5 years building walls around that memory. The walls are impressive. The memory is still there. Silence in the laboratory. Something in a tank bubbled. I am not here for you, Naruto said. I am here for Sasuke. Sasuke is mine. Sasuke is his own. You are borrowing him. The loan is overdue. Orochimaru stood. He drew himself to his full height, which was considerable because Orochimaru was physically tall before you added the menace. His yellow eyes burned. You think you can just walk in here and take my student? I did not think it. I am doing it. Thinking was not required. Orochimaru moved. Fast. Sonin fast. His neck elongated, that horrifying snake body extension, mouth open, fangs dripping, the full physical nightmare of a man who had surgically removed his own humanity and replaced it with scales. Naruto raised one finger. No. Orochimaru's body stopped. Mid-strike. His elongated neck hung in the air, mouth open, fangs inches from Naruto's face. He was frozen. Not by a jutsu, not by a paralysis technique, by the simple, quiet authority of someone who had said no and meant it on a level that reality itself could not argue with. Naruto looked into Orochimaru's open mouth. The tongue, the fangs, the darkness of a throat that had swallowed more horrors than any human should be capable of containing, and said, You taste like regret. Have you considered therapy? He turned and walked deeper into the base. Orochimaru unfroze. He collapsed against his throne, breathing hard, and realized that his rebuilt confidence was not rebuilt at all. It was a house of cards that had just been reminded of the wind. Kabuto, in the doorway, watched his master tremble. Lord Orochimaru, don't, Orochimaru whispered. Just don't. Naruto found Sasuke in a training room. It was a big room, high ceilings, scarred floors. The kind of room where you practice techniques that broke things because everything in it was already broken. Sasuke was in the center, shirtless, sweating, a sword in his hand. The chokuto, straight-bladed efficient, exactly the kind of weapon Sasuke would choose. He was running through forms, fast, precise, beautiful, in the way that violence is beautiful when it's been refined to an art. He sensed Naruto before he saw him. The sword stopped mid-swing. Sasuke's back was to the door. He didn't turn around. I wondered when you'd come. Today seemed correct. Who says I want to go back? No one. I am not here to drag you. I am here to collect you. The difference is that dragging requires resistance. Sasuke turned. He was taller now, leaner. The baby fat was gone. What remained was sharp jaw, eyes, posture, everything cut to an edge. He looked like what he was, a weapon in the final stages of being forged. He looked at Naruto, and there it was, the scale. The thing Sasuke had spent 2.5 years training to forget. The absolute unbridgeable gulf between the most talented Uchiha of his generation and the boy in the white jumpsuit who was, in the most literal sense possible, everything that existed. Sasuke felt it hit him like a wave. His Sharingan activated involuntarily. 3 tomoe spinning, trying to read, trying to analyze, trying to find something to copy. There was nothing to copy. There never had been. Copying Naruto would be like an ant trying to replicate the ocean. The Sharingan deactivated. Sasuke's eyes were black again. He stood there, sword at his side, and for one unguarded moment his face showed something he would deny until the end of time. Relief. Not because he wanted to go home. Not because he'd missed Konoha. Because Naruto had come. Because despite everything, the leaving, the silence, the betrayal of walking out on people who cared about him, Naruto had come to get him the way you go get your coat when it starts raining. Like it was obvious. Like it was never in question. Orochimaru won't let me leave, Sasuke said. Orochimaru is currently having a panic attack in his throne room. He is not a factor. I haven't finished my training. You have learned everything Orochimaru can teach you. The remaining techniques in his arsenal require body modifications that would compromise your Sharingan development. You are going to figure this out in approximately 3 weeks and leave on your own. I am saving you 3 weeks. Sasuke's jaw worked. I don't need saving. I know. I am not saving you. I am being efficient. They stared at each other across the training room. 2 teenagers, one who had spent years chasing power and one who had been born with all of it. The asymmetry should have been unbearable, it was, but standing in it, acknowledging it, looking directly at the unfairness of the cosmos and choosing to exist alongside it anyway, that was its own kind of strength. Fine, Sasuke said. He sheathed his sword. But I'm not doing it for you. I know, and I'm not done with Itachi. I know that too. Then we understand each other. We always have. That is why you find me so annoying. Sasuke almost smiled. Almost. The muscles in his face twitched toward it and then thought better. He walked past Naruto and into the corridor. They left the base together. Orochimaru did not try to stop them. Kabuto watched from a window. 2 figures walking away into the morning light. One in white, one in dark blue, neither looking back. They were back in Konoha by breakfast. Team 7 sat together at Ichiraku's for the first time in 2.5 years. Sakura had punched Sasuke in the face when she saw him. Then she'd hugged him. Then she'd punched him again. Sasuke accepted all 3 with the same stoic expression, though the second punch landed on a bruise from the first, and he definitely flinched. Kakashi arrived late, read his book, ordered miso, looked at his team. All 3 of them, together, alive, older, and behind the mask, something that had been clenched for years finally relaxed. Team 7, he said, back in action. Was there ever any doubt? Naruto asked. Considerable doubt. Sustained, well-documented doubt. Interesting, I had none. That, Kakashi said, is exactly what concerns me. 2 weeks later, Asuma Sarutobi died. Hidan of the Akatsuki, a silver-haired, loud-mouthed, immortal cultist with a triple-bladed scythe and a religious devotion to a death god named Jashin, ambushed Team 10 during a bounty mission near the Fire Temple. The fight was brief and brutal. Hidan's ritual worked on a principle that most ninja had never encountered: sympathetic voodoo. He tasted your blood, drew a circle on the ground, stood in it, and then anything he did to his own body happened to yours. He stabbed himself through the heart. You died. He survived. You were not. Asuma's blood was drawn. Hidan completed the ritual. He drove a retractable pike through his own chest with the theatrical relish of a man who had done this hundreds of times and still enjoyed it. Asuma Sarutobi dropped. The pike had pierced his heart. Not Hidan's, Asuma's. Through the ritual link, through the voodoo curse, through the deeply unfair mechanism of a god who rewarded murder with immortality. Team 10, Shikamaru, Ino, Choji, watched their sensei fall. He died in Shikamaru's arms. His last cigarette burned between his fingers. He talked about his unborn child. He told Shikamaru to protect the king. He smiled, because Asuma Sarutobi had always been the kind of man who smiled at the end of things. Then he was gone. Naruto arrived 40 minutes later. He had not been on the mission. He had not been assigned. He was walking through the forest on his way back from a conversation with a particular oak tree he'd been debating philosophy with for 6 months when he felt it. A cessation. A light going out. A specific frequency of human existence that had been vibrating in the world for 35 years, suddenly going silent. He followed the silence. He found Team 10 in a clearing. Asuma's body on the ground. Shikamaru kneeling beside it, face blank, hands shaking. Ino sobbing. Choji standing guard with a face that was trying to be brave and was failing. Hidan and Kakuzu, his partner, the stitched-together bounty hunter with 5 hearts and a body that could reassemble after being dismembered, had retreated to regroup. They were half a mile away, arguing about whether to go back and finish the job. Naruto looked at Asuma's body. He could bring him back. The thought formed and completed itself in less than a nanosecond. Every cell, every neuron, every fading electrical impulse in Asuma's cooling brain could be reignited. Naruto could reverse death the way you reverse a video. Smooth, simple, total. He did not. Because Shikamaru was looking at Asuma's face with an expression that Naruto had been studying for years. Grief. The specific, personal, world-reshaping grief that only comes when you lose someone you believed was permanent. Naruto had watched it happen to Sasuke, to Inari, to Zabuza and Haku. He had cataloged it and analyzed it and modeled it, and he understood now, in a way he had not understood in part 1, that this grief was not a problem to be solved. It was an experience to be survived, and surviving it was what would make Shikamaru into who he needed to become. Naruto stood at the edge of the clearing and did not fix it, and it cost him something. Something small and new and painful that sat in his chest like a splinter. The knowledge that he could help and was choosing not to. The weight of restraint when restraint felt like cruelty. This was new. This was the cost of caring. He filed it away and let it hurt. I will handle the ones who did this, Naruto said quietly. Shikamaru didn't look up. No. Naruto waited. I'll handle it, Shikamaru said. His voice was flat, hard, a voice that had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. This is mine. Naruto understood. He nodded, but he didn't leave. Shikamaru's revenge plan was brilliant. The deer shadow trap in the forest, the explosive tags, the strategy that used Hidan's own immortality against him, burying him alive in a pit on Nara clan land where the shadows would hold him forever. It was brilliant. It was also designed for a mortal opponent. Kakuzu was the variable. 5 hearts, elemental mastery, combat experience spanning decades. While Shikamaru focused on Hidan, Kakuzu went after the rest of Team 10 with calculated mercenary precision. Naruto intervened for Kakuzu, not for Hidan. Shikamaru had earned that. He found Kakuzu in a different section of the forest, where the ancient bounty hunter had pinned Ino and Choji against a rock face with threads of hardened chakra, his grotesque back masks charging elemental attacks. Wind release and fire release combining into a firestorm that would have incinerated both Genin. Naruto appeared between them and the fire. The combined elemental attack hit him. Wind-enhanced flame, hot enough to melt stone, slammed into his white jumpsuit and accomplished nothing. The fire went around him. The wind stopped. The heat dissipated. Naruto's jumpsuit wasn't even warm. Kakuzu's thread masks retracted. He stared at the blonde teenager who had just tanked a combined S-rank elemental assault without moving. Who the hell are you? I get asked that a lot. The answer has never satisfied anyone. Kakuzu launched his thread constructs, all 4 masks, all 4 elements, simultaneously. Earth release, Earth Spear hardened his body to the density of diamond. Wind release, pressure damage sent a compressed air bomb the size of a house. Fire release, searing migraine ignited the air. Lightning release, false darkness fired a spear of electricity, 4 S-rank techniques. Simultaneous, from 4 independent hearts. Naruto held up 4 fingers. Each technique stopped. Each one hung in the air. The air bomb, the fire, the earth spear, the lightning. Frozen, suspended, trapped in the space between Naruto's extended fingers like flies in amber. He examined them, turned his hand. The techniques rotated, orbiting his fingers like tiny, deadly planets. These are interesting, Naruto said. 4 hearts give you 4 elemental affinities. That's clever engineering. But the thread technique that holds them together has a structural weakness. The chakra filaments are strongest under tension, but brittle under torsion. If someone were to twist the threads instead of cutting them, He closed his hand, every thread in Kakuzu's body twisted, not cut, twisted. The microscopic chakra filaments that held his body together, that connected his hearts, that gave him his grotesque immortality, they corkscrewed in on themselves. The masks cracked. The heart seized. The stitched-together body of a man who had survived for a century came apart at the seams. Kakuzu collapsed, not dead. Naruto had been precise. The hearts were stopped, not destroyed. The threads were tangled, not severed. He was disabled, completely and permanently, without a single drop of blood. "You can still be valuable to the intelligence department," Naruto said, looking down at him. "You have a century of memories. Konoha will want to know about the Akatsuki's finances." Kakuzu tried to speak. His jaw worked. No sound came out. His eyes, the only part of him still functional, stared at Naruto with something that had no name in any language Kakuzu knew. Half a mile away, Shikamaru had finished. Hiden was in the pit, buried, screaming obscenities at the dark. The explosive tags had detonated. The forest floor had collapsed. Hiden was going to spend a very long time yelling at dirt. Naruto walked to the edge of the pit. He looked down. Hiden's muffled screaming was audible, creative, profane, and religiously themed. "Your god gave you immortality in exchange for worship," Naruto said. "That is a very small deal. Your god is not very powerful." The screaming intensified. "Also," Naruto added, "I am adjusting the terms of your immortality. You will now age, slowly, over the next few centuries. Eventually, you will die of old age in this pit alone, having accomplished nothing permanent." The screaming stopped. Then it resumed, much louder, with significantly more profanity. "Immortality is wasted on the loud," Naruto observed and walked away. 3 weeks after the Hiden incident, Itachi Uchiha came to find Naruto, not in Konoha. He wouldn't risk that. He sent a crow, a single black-feathered messenger that landed on Naruto's windowsill at dawn with a scroll in its beak. The scroll contained coordinates and a time, nothing else. Naruto went. The tea house was in a town between countries, one of those border settlements that belonged to no one and served everyone. Neutral ground. The kind of place where missing nin and active duty could sit in the same room and pretend not to recognize each other, because the tea was good and the owner minded his business. Itachi was already seated. He looked like what he was, a man dying from the inside. His skin was pale past the point of aesthetics. His hands, resting on the table, trembled with a fine, constant vibration. His eyes, the Mangekyo Sharingan deactivated, just black, were sunken. He was 21 years old and looked 40. Naruto sat across from him. A waitress brought tea. She looked at both of them and decided wisely to leave the pot and not come back. They sat in silence for 2 minutes. Itachi drank his tea. Naruto watched the steam. "What are you?" Itachi asked. No preamble, no small talk. Itachi Uchiha did not waste time he did not have. Naruto considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. Of all the people who had asked him this, Sasuke, Kakashi, Orochimaru, Pain, Itachi asked it differently. Not with fear, not with hunger, with the clinical precision of a man who needed to know, because the answer affected a plan he had been running for most of his life. "I am the sum of everything that exists outside of what you call existence," Naruto said. "I chose to be here. I chose to be this." He gestured at himself, the jumpsuit, the blonde hair, the teenage body. A child, a ninja, a person, because those things fascinated me. Itachi absorbed this. His face didn't change. He processed information the way a machine processes input. Intake, analysis, integration. No waste. "Sasuke," he said, not a question. "He is in Konoha. He is training. He is still consumed with killing you. He is also, against his will, getting healthier. Sakura makes him eat vegetables. I know what you did at the Valley of the End. I know what you showed him. Then you know I did not take his choice away." "I know." Itachi paused. "Will you let it play out?" Naruto looked blue eyes, deep and old, and carrying a weight that had nothing to do with obligation and everything to do with interest. "I have been letting everything play out. That is why I am here, not to be a god, not to fix, to experience, to witness. Even the things that hurt, especially those, the things that hurt are the most informative. I suspect you know that better than anyone." Itachi's hand stopped trembling, for a moment, just one, a moment of perfect stillness in a body that was falling apart. "Are you going to save him from me?" Itachi asked. Naruto looked at him. Lice looked at the disease behind his eyes, the blood in his lungs, the countdown that was ticking in every cell. Looked at the plan, years deep, unfathomably complex, built on sacrifice and misdirection, and a love so extreme it had disguised itself as the greatest crime in Konoha's history. From you? Naruto said. No, you are the best thing that ever happened to him. Itachi's expression cracked, not collapsed, not broke, cracked. A single fissure in a wall that had been under pressure since the night he murdered his family. For one moment through the crack, something showed that Itachi Uchiha had been holding behind his eyes for years. Exhaustion. Pure, soul deep, can't carry this anymore exhaustion. The tiredness of a man who had been running a play where he was both hero and villain, and the audience was his little brother, and the curtain call was his own death. Thank you, Itachi whispered. For what? For knowing, for understanding, for not trying to fix it. Naruto was quiet for a moment. Your plan is the most human thing I have ever encountered. You chose to be hated by the person you love most so that he could become strong enough to survive without you. That is not strategy. That is parenthood. Itachi looked at his tea. The surface trembled with the vibration of his hands. He stood, left money on the table, walked to the door, stopped. The Akatsuki will move on Konoha, Itachi said without turning around. Nagato believes in his plan. He will come with everything. I know. Will you protect them? I always have. Itachi walked out. The door closed behind him. The tea house was quiet. The steam from the pot rose and curled and dissolved into nothing, the way all temporary things eventually do. Naruto sat alone with 2 cups of tea and the memory of a man who had finally been understood by someone. And it was too late for that to change anything. Pain came to Konoha on a Thursday. He came with all 6 paths. The Deva path in front, orange-haired, pierced, the Rinnegan burning in eyes that held the conviction of a man who had decided that pain was the only universal language. Behind it, animal, human, Asura, Preta, Naraka. 6 bodies, 6 sets of the most powerful eyes in the ninja world. One god, distributed across 6 vessels, arriving at the gates of a village that had no idea what was about to hit it. The first missile landed in the commercial district, the Asura path, the mechanical one, the one Nagato had rebuilt with weapons systems embedded in every limb, raised its arm and fired. A guided missile, chakra-propelled, slammed into a building 2 blocks from the hospital. The explosion took out 3 structures and killed 14 people before the debris finished falling. It was not an attack. It was a statement. I am here. I am not negotiating. The village mobilized. Anbu deployed within 90 seconds. Kakashi was on the rooftops within 2 minutes. Sharingan open, tracking the paths through the smoke. Tsunade was in the command center, issuing orders, directing evacuations, doing what Hokages do when the world falls in. The paths spread across the village like a virus. Each one had a purpose. The animal path summoned, giant dogs that split into multiples when struck, a bull that demolished buildings with its horns, a bird that provided aerial surveillance. The human path moved through the civilian sectors, extracting information from captured ninja by pulling the souls from their bodies. The Preta path absorbed every jutsu thrown at it, drinking chakra like water. The Naraka path interrogated and resurrected, running a one-entity judgment system. Kakashi fought the Deva path. He fought brilliantly. He fought the way only Kakashi Hatake could, creative, adaptive, using the Sharingan and Kamui to warp away the Deva path's attacks at the last possible moment. He identified the 5-second interval between Shinra Tensei uses. He exploited it with pinpoint Raikiri strikes. It wasn't enough. Shinra Tensei. Universal push. The technique that the Deva path used like punctuation, like a period at the end of a sentence. A pulse of gravitational force that repelled everything within range. Kakashi dodged one, warped another. The third caught him. He flew backward into a collapsed wall. His ribs broke, his left arm shattered. He lay in the rubble, breathing blood, staring at the sky and thought about Obito, about Rin, about the last time he looked at the memorial stone. He was dying. The Deva path advanced. Then it stopped. Throughout the village, in the burning streets, in the collapsed buildings, in the hospital where medics were running out of bandages, people started whispering. A sound that moved through the smoke and chaos like a thread of gold through a burning tapestry. Where is Naruto? The whisper became a murmur. The murmur became a chant. Shopkeepers who had given him free things out of fear. Jonin who had sat in his classroom. Chunin who had watched the pillow fight. Civilians who had felt the gravity shift when he walked by and had learned over the years that the weight wasn't a threat. It was a presence, a guarantee, a promise that something immovable was nearby. Where is Naruto? He walked through the east gate. His white jumpsuit was clean. Not symbolically, actually clean. There was ash in the air, debris on every surface, smoke turning the sky gray. And Naruto walked through it like a man walking through a garden, hands in pockets, unhurried. The ash didn't touch him. The smoke parted. The rubble in his path shifted aside, not because he moved it, but because the ground itself accommodated his passage the way the sea accommodates a tide. He looked at the village, at the fires, at the collapsed academy building where he'd attended class, at the hospital where Sakura was right now, healing the wounded, her hands glowing green and her eyes terrified. He felt something. The splinter in his chest, the one that had been growing since Asuma's death, since the tea house with Itachi, since every moment he chose restraint and felt the cost of it. Twisted. These were his people. Not because he owned them, not because they worshipped him. Because he had eaten ramen at their counters and walked their streets and sat in their classrooms and learned their names and watched their children grow up alongside him. And somewhere in the catalog of infinite data that constituted his consciousness, these specific humans had been filed under a category that had no name but felt like mine. The Deva Path was standing on top of a ruined building. The Rinnegan surveyed the destruction with the dispassionate assessment of a general reviewing a battlefield. It turned its head. It saw Naruto. Through its eyes, Nagato saw Naruto. Naruto looked at all 6 paths simultaneously. He did not need to turn his head. He was aware of every atom in the village, every heartbeat, every breath. He knew where each path was. He knew what they had done. He knew that 47 people were dead and 312 were injured, and Kakashi was lying in rubble with a collapsed lung. He smiled, not a threatening smile, not a cruel one. The same curious, open, slightly too calm smile he had given Pain's bird on the Hokage monument. "I'm here," he said, not loudly, at conversational volume, but every person in Konoha heard it, every single one, as if the words had been spoken directly into each of their ears, intimate and private, and meant just for them. The Deva Path raised its hand. Shinra Tensei. The universal push erupted, city-leveling force. The attack that had already destroyed a third of the village compressed into a directed wave aimed at the boy in white. It hit Naruto. He rocked back on one heel, like someone had pushed him playfully in the chest. A "hey, pay attention" push. A friend jostled. The force that leveled buildings made him shift his weight by approximately 3 degrees. He looked down at himself, looked at his jumpsuit, which was still clean. Oh, interesting. He raised one finger, index finger. He pushed the air. The Shinra Tensei doubled, reflected. The gravitational force that had hit him bounced back toward the Deva Path with twice the power. And the building the path was standing on cratered inward, the structure collapsing in on itself, as the ground for 50 meters in every direction concaved into a bowl of compressed earth and shattered concrete. The Deva Path was driven into the ground like a nail. The impact left a crater 6 feet deep. The path stood up. Its cloak was torn, its piercings bent, but the Rinnegan stared, undimmed. Naruto was already moving, not fast, walking. The same pace he always used, but the world rearranged itself around his walk with the urgency of a stage crew changing sets between acts. The Animal Path, 3 blocks north, had summoned its full arsenal. Giant dog, giant bird, giant chameleon, giant rhino, giant centipede, a zoo of chakra constructs, each one the size of a building, rampaging through the streets. Naruto looked in their direction. Sit. Every summon sat. The giant dog, mid-charge, mouth open, 1 second from crushing a fleeing civilian, planted its haunches on the ground and sat. Its tongue lolled out. Its tail, which had been demolishing a street, wagged. The giant rhino sat. It looked confused. Rhinos are not built for sitting. It managed anyway. The giant bird landed, folded its wings, sat on a collapsed roof like a hen on a nest. The centipede curled into a circle and went still. Every summoned creature in the village, simultaneously, obeyed. Not because of a jutsu. Because Naruto told them to, and the fundamental nature of reality included a hierarchy, and Naruto was at the top of it. The animal path stared at its disobedient summons. It tried to resummon. The summoning circle appeared, flashed, and produced a small toad wearing a confused expression. "That is not what you intended to summon," Naruto observed from 3 blocks away. "But I think it's an improvement." The Preta path came from the left, the chakra-absorbing path. Its ability was simple and devastating. It could absorb any chakra-based attack by touching it. Ninjutsu was useless against it. The strategy was sound. If Naruto's abilities were chakra-based, the Preta path could drain them. It grabbed Naruto's arm. The absorption began. Chakra flowed from Naruto into the Preta path, energy pouring in, filling the body, overloading the system. The Preta path's eyes widened. Its grip tightened. More energy. More. The body swelled. The piercings vibrated. The Rinnegan flickered. Trying to absorb Naruto's energy was like trying to drink the ocean through a straw. The Preta path's body couldn't contain it. It wasn't a question of capacity. It was a question of category. The energy wasn't chakra. It wasn't natural energy. It wasn't any form of power that the Rinnegan had been designed to interact with. It was raw, unfiltered, unprocessed existence. And the Preta path's absorption ability choked on it the way a drain chokes on concrete. The Preta path shut down. Its eyes went blank. Its hand released. It toppled backward like a mannequin and hit the ground with a hollow thud. "Overloaded," Naruto said. "That happens." The human path moved through the chaos, reaching for a Konoha Chunin who was pinned under rubble. Its hand extended, the soul extraction technique designed to pull the consciousness from a living body, lethal, irreversible. Naruto was between them. He had not moved. He had not flickered or teleported or used any technique that the Rinnegan could track. He was simply in a different place than he had been a moment ago, standing between the human path's reaching hand and the trapped Chunin. "That one's mine," Naruto said quietly. "Put it back." The human path's hand trembled. It was already touching the Chunin's head. The soul was half extracted, a shimmer of light, a person's entire existence, pulled halfway out of their body like a thread from a sweater. Naruto touched the human path's wrist. The soul snapped back. The Chunin gasped, alive, whole. The human path's arm went limp, then its other arm, then its legs. It collapsed, not destroyed, just disconnected, like someone had unplugged it. Naruto looked down at the paralyzed path. "Extracting souls is rude. I am adding it to my list of things I find philosophically objectionable. The list is getting long." The Ashura path, the weaponized one, opened every weapon port it had. Missiles, lasers, mechanical arms with buzzsaw attachments, a chest cannon that fired concentrated chakra blasts. It was a walking arsenal. The peak of Nagato's mechanical engineering, it fired everything. The barrage was genuinely impressive. Dozens of guided missiles, each one capable of destroying a building. Concentrated energy blasts that cut through steel. A sustained assault that turned the air between the Asura path and Naruto into a wall of fire and light and death. Naruto raised his hand, palm out, like he was waving at someone across the street. Every projectile stopped. Every missile, every blast, every spinning blade and chakra bullet. They hung in the air in a constellation of suspended destruction, each one frozen mid-flight, perfectly still. Naruto looked at the array of weapons floating around him. Dozens of them, each one lethal, each one motionless. He turned them into butterflies. Every missile, every bullet, every blast of concentrated death became a butterfly. Different colors, different sizes. Some were monarch orange, some were morpho blue. Some were painted ladies and swallowtails and species that didn't exist on any continent. Butterflies with wings that caught light from angles that shouldn't have been possible. They scattered. A cloud of butterflies rising from the space where an arsenal had been, drifting over the ruined village, settling on collapsed walls and broken signs and the shoulders of stunned shinobi who were standing in the streets with their weapons drawn and their mouths open. A butterfly landed on Kakashi's chest where he lay in the rubble. Its wings were silver. He was still alive. He was going to be fine. He looked at the butterfly and laughed. It hurt. Everything hurt. But he laughed. Only the Deva path remained standing. It had climbed out of its crater. It stood in the center of the village, or what was left of the center. Its cloak was destroyed. Its piercings were bent, but the Rinnegan blazed. Nagato spoke through it. His real voice channeled through the dead body of his best friend, carrying the weight of decades of pain and conviction. You think this is a game? The Devapath's mouth moved with Nagato's words. You turn my weapons into insects and make my summons sit like pets, but you do not understand pain. You have never lost anything. You have never felt the world take something from you and known that no power on earth could bring it back. Naruto stood 10 meters away. The butterflies drifted between them. He did not interrupt. He listened to all of it. The speech about pain, about the cycle of hatred, about the world's inability to understand peace without suffering, about Yahiko, about the dream they'd shared, about how that dream died when a kunai entered Yahiko's chest and the world proved, once and for all, that good intentions were not enough. Nagato talked for 4 minutes. His voice cracked twice. Through the Devapath's face, through the piercings in the dead eyes, the grief of a man who had been running from his worst day for 20 years bled through like water through stone. Naruto listened. Every word. When it was finished, the silence settled. Ash drifted. A butterfly landed on the Devapath's shoulder. You are not wrong about pain, Naruto said. You are wrong about what to do with it. There is nothing to do with it. Pain exists. It teaches, that is all. No, pain exists. It changes. And then you choose what to build from the wreckage. You chose a weapon. You built an organization of killers and aimed it at the world because the world hurt you. That is understandable. It is also lazy. The Devapath flinched. Nagato far away felt that word land like a kunai. Yahiko, Naruto said. The name hit harder than any jutsu. The Devapath, Yahiko's body preserved and puppeted, the walking corpse of Nagato's dead best friend, went rigid. His death is the wound everything else grew from, Naruto said. You did not become this because of philosophy. You became this because you miss your friend. Through the Rinnegan, Nagato stared at Naruto with eyes that had seen the worst of humanity and decided to become worse. And in those eyes, behind the conviction, behind the God complex, behind the piercings and the paths and the decades of calculated destruction, something crumbled. Not the wall. The foundation the wall was built on. Nagato had never been told in plain language by someone who could not be argued with that his entire ideology was grief wearing a mask. The Devapath's hand came up, not to attack, to touch its own face, Yahiko's face, the face that Nagato saw every time he looked in the mirror of his dead friend's eyes. What would you have me do? Nagato's voice was small, not the voice of a god, the voice of a man who was tired of being one. Naruto raised one hand, not toward the Devapath, toward the village, toward the rubble and the fires and the broken buildings and the 47 people who had died today. The dead woke up, not violently, not with gasps or screams or the dramatic convulsion of forbidden resurrection techniques. They simply breathed again. In the hospital, a body in the morgue opened its eyes and sat up and asked the mortician for a glass of water. In the streets, a civilian who had been crushed by falling debris found that the debris was no longer on her and the wound in her chest was no longer there, and her heart was beating again with the quiet, steady rhythm of something that had never stopped. 47 people, every single one, returned to life, not reanimated, not Edo Tensei'd, restored, complete, whole, as if death had been a typo and Naruto was the editor. The village gasped, not the metaphorical kind, the literal, collective 50,000 people kind, where the air itself seemed to inhale. Naruto did this quietly, no gesture, no light show. He just decided that these people shouldn't be dead, and reality agreed, the way it always agreed. Because he was not requesting a change, he was informing reality of how things were going to be. He looked at the Devapath one last time, at Yahiko's face, at the Rinnegan that had seen too much and understood too little. Go home, Nagato. The cycle ends when someone decides to stop. The Devapath stood still for a long time. The butterfly on his shoulder opened and closed its wings. Then it fell, like a puppet with cut strings. Yahiko's body hit the ground, and this time it was just a body, just a dead man, finally allowed to rest. Somewhere in the land of rain, Nagato pulled the chakra receivers from the wall, his connection to the path severed. He sat in his machine, in his tower, in the rain, and he breathed. Just breathed. Konan, beside him, watched. She had seen him build an army. She had seen him wage war. She had never seen him stop. What now? She asked. Nagato looked at his hands, the hands that had killed and controlled and claimed to bring peace through pain. I don't know, he said. I think that's the point. The aftermath of Pain's invasion was chaos and miracle in equal measure. Tsunade directed the reconstruction with the fury of a woman who had too many feelings and turned all of them into work orders. Kakashi was discharged from the hospital in 3 days, held together by medical jutsu and stubbornness. The resurrected dead went home to their families and tried to explain what it felt like to be dead. Consensus: cold, quiet, vaguely annoying. Naruto sat on a broken wall and ate an emergency ration bar he'd found in a fallen jonin's pocket. He examined it with genuine curiosity. This tastes like regret, he said to no one in particular. Sakura, passing by with an armload of medical supplies, heard him and laughed. It was a tired laugh, a laugh that had been through a war, but it was real. Those bars are awful, she said. They've tasted like that since the Second Ninja War. Someone should fix that. You could probably turn it into a steak with your mind. I could, but then I would not experience regret. And I am told that is an important human flavor. Sakura looked at him. This boy she'd sat next to in class, this teammate she'd watched turn legends into footnotes, he was covered in ash for the first time. Just a little. On his shoulders. On the hem of his jumpsuit. Not because the ash had touched him, because he'd let it. You're changing, Sakura said. Yes, I believe so. Is that a good thing? I don't know yet. Ask me in a decade. 3 weeks after the invasion, in an Uchiha hideout that no map showed, Sasuke Uchiha fought his brother. Naruto was there, not as a participant, as a witness. He had walked to the hideout, 2 days travel for a normal person, 40 minutes for Naruto at a casual pace, and sat in the shadows of the upper gallery, invisible, silent, watching. Itachi and Sasuke faced each other across the stone floor. The fight was everything it should have been. Fire release, great fireball jutsu, Sasuke's opening, a wall of flame that filled the corridor and pushed Itachi back 2 steps. Itachi responded with crow clone, his body dissolving into a murder of black birds that reformed behind Sasuke, kunai drawn, the Sharingan clash. Red eyes meeting red eyes, genjutsu layered on genjutsu, Tsukuyomi, Itachi's nightmare world, 72 hours of torture compressed into a second. Sasuke broke it. He trained for this. His will was an iron spike driven through the illusion, and he shattered the 3-day nightmare in an instant, and came back swinging. Black flames. The fire that never goes out, that burns through anything, that is the Mangekyo Sharingan's most terrifying weapon. Itachi's eye bled. The flames erupted from his gaze and raced towards Sasuke with the inevitability of a death sentence. Sasuke activated Kagutsuchi. Flame control. He caught the black fire and reshaped it. A shield, a blade, a weapon forged from his brother's own power turned against him. The flames hissed and crackled. Blood ran from Sasuke's eye. They were both burning, both bleeding, both destroying themselves to destroy each other. Susanoo, Itachi's first. The spectral warrior erupted from his body, orange, skeletal, enormous. The Yata mirror in one hand, reflecting all attacks. The Totsuka blade in the other, sealing anything it pierced. The ultimate defense and the ultimate offense, wielded by a dying man who had never once fought at full strength, because full strength would have killed his brother. Sasuke Susanoo answered, purple, incomplete, ribs and arms and the beginning of a skull, powered by hatred and grief and the stubborn refusal to lose. His was smaller than Itachi's, weaker, but it was his, and that mattered more than size. They clashed. Susanoo against Susanoo. The hideout shook, walls cracked. The stone floor buckled under the pressure of 2 chakra constructs slamming into each other with enough force to rearrange geography. Naruto watched. He watched Itachi's movements slow. The disease, the internal hemorrhaging that had been eating him for years. Every Amaterasu cost him. Every Susanoo drained what little he had left. He was fighting on fumes. He was fighting on love. Itachi's Susanoo flickered. The Totsuka blade dropped. The Yata mirror dimmed. Sasuke saw the opening and took it. His Susanoo arm drew back. The fist, enormous, purple, crackling with the force of every nightmare Sasuke had survived since that night, launched forward. It connected. Itachi's Susanoo shattered. The spectral warrior dissolved like smoke. Itachi stumbled. Blood erupted from his mouth. Dark, arterial, the kind that comes from somewhere deep. He fell to one knee, then the other. Sasuke stood over him. Sharingan blazing, chest heaving, blood on his face, his hands, his sword. Victorious, Itachi looked up at his little brother. Through the blood, through the failure, through the end of everything he'd spent his life building toward, he smiled. He reached up and tapped Sasuke's forehead with 2 fingers. The gesture, the one from childhood. The one that said everything Itachi could never say in words. Sorry, Sasuke, this is the last time. His hand fell. Itachi Uchiha died on the stone floor of an abandoned hideout, smiling, and the last thing he saw was his brother's face. In the shadows of the upper gallery, Naruto did not move. His hands were in his pockets. His eyes were blue, not white, not cosmic, just blue. The blue of a boy watching someone die and choosing not to stop it. Choosing, for the first time, to experience the thing he had always studied from a distance. Loss. Not the pre-echo, not the anticipation, the real thing. A specific light extinguished, a voice that would never speak again. A man who had chosen everything, even this, even dying, even leaving his brother alone in a burning room, and meant all of it. Naruto stood in the shadows and was sad. Not cosmically, not philosophically, sad. The small, terrible, human kind of sad that sits in your chest and makes breathing harder and doesn't teach you anything, except that some things cannot be fixed and should not be fixed, and the inability to fix them is the price of caring about them in the first place. Sasuke collapsed next to Itachi's body, his Sharingan deactivated, his hands pressed against the stone. He wasn't crying yet. That would come later in the days that followed, when the adrenaline faded and the truth settled in and the world got very quiet. Naruto looked at Itachi's still form. He looked at Sasuke's shaking back. He spoke, quietly, to no one, to the dark, to whatever part of the universe was listening, if any part was. You were the most interesting human I have met. You chose everything, even this. He did not resurrect Itachi. Itachi would not have wanted it. Naruto understood that about him. Some people's stories end and the ending is the point, and changing it would dishonor everything that came before. He left, silently. The way he had arrived, Sasuke found out the truth about the Uchiha massacre 6 days later. Obito, still using the name Tobi, still wearing the mask, still playing the long game, found Sasuke in the wreckage of the hideout and told him everything. The coup, the order from Konoha's elders, Danzo, the impossible choice, the truth behind Itachi's crime. Naruto found Sasuke in a field outside the hideout, sitting on the ground, not moving, not crying, just sitting with the look of a man whose entire reality had been picked up, turned upside down, and shaken until everything fell out. Did you know? Sasuke asked. His voice was dead, flat. A voice with no energy left for anything. Yes. The word landed like a boulder in still water. Did you always know? Since the moment I was old enough to perceive the threads of this village's history. Yes. And you let it happen. You watched me hate him. You watched me train to kill him. You watched me tear myself apart trying to get strong enough to murder the person who loved me most. And you knew. Yes. Why? Naruto sat down across from him, cross-legged, hands on his knees, the white jumpsuit on the scorched grass. Because Itachi asked me to. Sasuke went still. His breathing stopped. His heart, which had been hammering in his chest, actually paused between beats, as if his body needed a moment to process what his ears had just delivered. He came to me, Naruto said, 3 weeks before your fight. He sat across from me in a tea house and asked if I would let it play out. He wanted you to walk your own road. He wanted Sasuke Uchiha to be a person, not a project, not someone else's result. He wanted you to earn your own story, even if that story included hating him, even if it included killing him. Sasuke's jaw trembled. His hands, already damaged, already bleeding from walls he punched in the days since Itachi's death, curled into fists. He was dying. He was dying the whole time, and he still fought me, and he let me kill him, and you knew, and you just sat there. Yes. Stop saying yes. I will not lie to you, Sasuke. I have never lied to you. Itachi asked me to respect his choice. I did. I respected it the way I respect all choices, completely, even when they hurt, even when I disagree. Do you disagree? Naruto was quiet for a moment. He loved you in the most painful way anyone has ever loved anyone. The kind of love that looks like cruelty because it refuses to be gentle when gentle would make things worse. He chose to be your villain so you could be someone's hero, and he would do it again, every time, without hesitation. Sasuke broke, not with fury. That was gone. Burned out. The rage that had been his fuel for years had used itself up in the fight, and the truth had poured cold water on the embers. What broke was the thing underneath the rage, the thing the rage had been protecting. The grief, the love, the small, terrified 8-year-old boy who had watched his parents die and hadn't been allowed to mourn because mourning meant accepting that they were gone. And if they were gone, then Itachi was a monster. And if Itachi was a monster, then the world made sense, and sense was all Sasuke had. Now the world didn't make sense. The monster was a martyr. The villain was a saint. And the kid who'd spent his whole life building a weapon had just learned it was always pointed at the wrong target. Sasuke cried. Not the quiet kind. The ugly kind. The shaking, snot-running, mouth-open kind that comes from somewhere below the ribs and sounds like it's tearing you apart on the way out. He cried for his parents, for his clan, for the brother who had carried the weight of an impossible choice and never, not once, asked to be understood. Naruto sat across from him and let it happen. He did not comfort. He did not speak. He was simply present, an immovable point of stillness in the storm of Sasuke's grief, a lighthouse that didn't rescue you, but showed you where the shore was. When it was over, not finished, it would never be finished, but paused, Sasuke sat in the grass and breathed. His face was wrecked. His eyes were swollen. He looked for the first time in years like a teenager. Naruto put a hand on his shoulder, not cosmic, not reality warping, just a hand on a shoulder, the most ordinary gesture in the human vocabulary. What do you want to do now? Naruto asked. Sasuke didn't answer for a long time. The wind moved the grass around them. A bird sang. The world kept going because the world always keeps going, even when you want it to stop. I don't know, Sasuke said. Naruto looked at him. Those blue eyes, warm, old, impossibly gentle for something that had once been everything. That is the first honest thing you have said since I met you. I find it very promising. The 5 Kage summit happened 3 weeks later. It was supposed to be a closed-door meeting between the leaders of the 5 great nations. Tsunade of the leaf, A of the cloud, Mei of the mist, Onoki of the stone, Gaara of the sand. High politics, tense diplomacy. The kind of meeting where everyone carried weapons they pretended not to have and said things they didn't mean with smiles they'd practiced in mirrors. Naruto was not invited. He showed up anyway. The building is architecturally interesting, he told the samurai guards at the door. I am here to observe. The samurai, who were elite warriors trained to protect the most powerful people on the continent, attempted to stop him. Their hands moved to their swords. Their feet shifted into combat stances. Their training activated. Their training was inadequate. Naruto walked past them the way a river walks past stones. They didn't fall. They weren't injured. They simply found themselves standing aside, having made the decision to let him through, a decision they would later be unable to explain or remember making. He entered the summit chamber, 5 Kage, 5 bodyguards, Mifune the moderator, and 1 blonde teenager in a white jumpsuit who sat down in an empty chair like he'd been expected. The Raikage noticed him first. A, the 4th Raikage, was a mountain of a man. Muscles on muscles, lightning chakra permanently crackling across his skin, a temper that could be measured on the Richter scale. He had the kind of presence that filled rooms and the kind of fist that emptied them. Who the hell is this kid? I slammed his palm on the table. The table cracked. That's Naruto Uzumaki, Gaara said calmly. He was the Kazekage now, young, composed, carrying the quiet confidence of a man who had been put to sleep by an infinite being and woken up better. I would suggest not hitting him. I don't care whose kid he is. The Raikage moved. Lightning armor activated. The full-body chakra enhancement that made A the fastest human alive. He crossed the distance between his seat and Naruto in less time than a thought, fist drawn back, enough force to punch through a mountain behind it. The fist hit Naruto's cheek. Naruto's head didn't move. The impact, a blow that could have killed any living shinobi, that had killed living shinobi, that was the signature of the most physically powerful Kage in the world. Connected with Naruto's face, the way a raindrop connects with a window, A's knuckles stung. Naruto looked at him. Your lightning armor enhances your speed and durability by approximately 400%. The power output is remarkable, but your form drifts to the right on your full extension punches. You're overcompensating for an old shoulder injury. Left side. I stared at him. His left shoulder, which had been damaged in a fight with Minato 30 years ago, in which he had told exactly 0 people about, twinged. How? I know everything. It's my whole thing. Mei Terumi, the 5th Mizukage, was watching from her seat. She was beautiful, dangerous, and possessed a survival instinct that had kept her alive through a civil war. She felt Naruto's presence the way you feel a change in atmospheric pressure before a storm. Not threatening, not yet, but fundamentally impossible to ignore. She went very formal, very careful. Her posture adjusted by degrees. Her voice, when she spoke, had the precise diplomatic tone of someone addressing something they couldn't fully assess. Perhaps our guest would like to explain his presence. I came because the Akatsuki are a threat to the global power structure, and this summit will determine the Allied response. Also, the building has very nice arches. Onoki, the 3rd Tsuchikage, old as dirt and twice as hard, looked at Naruto from across the table. Onoki was 3 feet tall and had been alive long enough to fight in 2 world wars. He had met the 2nd Hokage. He had seen techniques that made younger Kage blanch. He had a sense for power that went beyond detection. It was instinct, survival intuition, the accumulated wisdom of 80 years of not dying. He bowed. Slightly, almost imperceptibly. His body did it before his mind could stop it. A reflexive acknowledgement of something above him in a hierarchy that no political title could capture. He caught himself, straightened, pretended it hadn't happened. Naruto noticed. He said nothing. The summit proceeded. Madara's plan was revealed. Obito, still acting as Madara, projected his presence into the chamber and announced the Moon's Eye Plan, the infinite Tsukuyomi, a genjutsu cast on the moon, reflected back onto the earth, trapping every conscious being in an eternal dream of happiness. The Kage reacted with appropriate horror. Arguments erupted, alliances formed. Naruto listened to the entire pitch. Obito's logic, peace through unconsciousness, an end to all suffering through the elimination of all experience. The culmination of a plan decades in the making, rooted in the same grief that had driven Nagato, that had driven Sasuke, that had driven every person who ever looked at the world suffering and decided the solution was to replace the world instead of fixing it. When Obito finished, Naruto looked at the other Kage. He wants to trap all conscious life in an illusion of happiness. Does anyone else find it interesting that his version of peace requires everyone to be unconscious? The room was silent. Naruto looked at the space where Obito's projection had been. I know you're listening, Uchiha. Very far away, in a dimension between dimensions, Obito felt something. Through his kamui, through the spatial manipulation that made him functionally untouchable, through every layer of protection that the most paranoid man in the world had built around himself. Something looked at him, not detected. Looked. The way you look at someone standing in front of you, Obito's Sharingan spun. His Mangekyo activated involuntarily. Kamui tried to shift him, to move him, to put distance between himself and whatever was seeing him. The distance did not increase. He sees you, Zetsu whispered beside him. I don't know how, but he sees you. Obito said nothing, but his hand, hidden inside his cloak, was shaking. The 4th Great Ninja War began. The Allied shinobi forces, 80,000 strong, 5 nations united for the first time in history, deployed across the continent. The enemy, 100,000 white Zetsu clones, the reanimated dead of every nation's history, and behind them, orchestrating everything, Obito Uchiha and the shadow of the real Madara's plan. The battlefield was enormous, multiple fronts, multiple divisions, multiple commanders. The kind of war that ate continents and spat out ash. Naruto walked onto the main front at dawn. He didn't arrive dramatically. No flash, no technique. He just appeared at the front line, walking through the ranks of allied shinobi who parted for him without being asked, the way crowds always parted, the way reality always made room. He looked at the enemy line. 100,000 Zetsu clones, white and grinning and identical, stretching to the horizon. He looked at the sky, where the reanimated dead were being deployed. Former Kage, legendary shinobi, the greatest warriors in history, pulled from death and forced to fight for the wrong side. The 2nd Mizukage, the 3rd Raikage, the 2nd Tsuchikage, legends made into weapons. "This is rude," Naruto said. He snapped his fingers. Every Edo Tensei on the battlefield ended, not one at a time, not section by section. Every single reanimated shinobi, hundreds of them, across multiple fronts, spanning the entire width of the continent, crumbled to dust simultaneously. The jutsu didn't unravel. It ceased, as if the concept of forcing dead people to fight had been removed from reality's vocabulary. The souls flew free. They rose from the crumbling bodies like lights leaving a broken lantern, ascending into whatever came after death, with the speed and grace of things that had been held too long and were very happy to leave. Across every front, the Allied forces watched their dead enemies dissolve. The battles that had been raging, desperate, bloody, the kind of fights where people die screaming, suddenly had no opponents. Ninja who had been locked in combat with reanimated legends found themselves swinging at empty air. The silence that followed was deafening. Then the cheering started. Somewhere in a cave system behind enemy lines, Kabuto Yakushi, who had spent years mastering Edo Tensei, who had perfected Orochimaru's forbidden technique and pushed it beyond anything its creator had imagined, felt every single one of his reanimations sever simultaneously. It felt like having his nervous system unplugged. He fell off his chair. He lay on the cave floor, staring at the ceiling, and felt the absolute totality of his irrelevance. "That's not possible," he whispered to the dark. "That's not even theoretically possible." The dark did not care. The Zetsu army remained. 100,000 clones, still charging, still grinning. Naruto looked at them. He didn't find them interesting enough to be creative. He waved his hand. The ground beneath the Zetsu army became liquid. Not mud, not quicksand. The molecular bonds of the Earth's surface simply relaxed, and the entire front section, 30,000 Zetsu, sank into the ground like they were standing on water that had forgotten how to hold them. They disappeared in 8 seconds. The ground re-solidified, smooth, flat, like nothing had been there. The remaining 70,000 Zetsu stopped. They didn't have survival instincts in the traditional sense, but whatever programming guided them recognized that the ground was now a variable, and variables were dangerous. Naruto looked at them. "The rest of you can leave, or I can make the ground do that again." 70,000 Zetsu did not leave. Naruto shrugged. The ground did it again. The Zetsu army was gone in under a minute. On the Allied side, 80,000 shinobi stood in the sudden quiet of a war that had lost its army. Generals looked at empty battlefields. Medics looked at patients they didn't have. A logistics officer checked his supply estimates, realized he prepared for a 3-month campaign that had lasted 20 minutes, and sat down hard on a supply crate. Then Madara arrived. He came from the sky. Not summoned, not reanimated. The real Madara Uchiha, somehow, impossibly, alive, resurrected through a mechanism that Obito had prepared as his final contingency. The original body, the original power. The god of shinobi returned. He landed on the battlefield with the impact of a meteor. The earth cratered under his feet. His hair, long, wild black, whipped in the displaced air. His armor, ancient and scarred, gleamed. His eyes opened. The Rinnegan, not just the Sharingan, the Rinnegan. Both eyes, the legendary eyes of the Sage of Six Paths, born in Madara Uchiha, the only mortal in history to have awakened them through sheer will and biology. He looked at the Allied forces, 80,000 shinobi, 5 nations, the entire military might of the continent arrayed against him. He smiled. "Where is the war? I was promised a war." He looked at the empty battlefield, at the smooth ground where 100,000 Zetsu had been, at the dusty remains of the Edo Tensei that he had counted on as his vanguard. His smile faded. His eyes found Naruto. Naruto was standing at the front of the Allied forces, hands in pockets, white jumpsuit, blue eyes, looking at Madara with the expression of someone encountering a particularly interesting bird. "You cleaned up," Madara said. His voice was a deep rumble, the voice of a man who had fought the god of shinobi to a standstill and lived long enough to see the future and decide he hated it. "Your army was unimaginative. Your resurrected soldiers were philosophically objectionable. I removed them. All of them. All of them." Madara's Rinnegan spun. He assessed. He calculated. He did what all great warriors do when faced with the unknown. He tested it. "Tengai Shinsei!" He raised one hand toward the sky. The clouds parted, the blue sky twisted, and from the atmosphere, pulled by the gravitational force of the Rinnegan, a meteor fell. Not a small meteor. A genuine continent-killing asteroid, 2 kilometers across, burning through the atmosphere with a tail of fire that turned the sky orange. The heat reached the ground before the rock did. The air itself superheated, a wave of thermal energy that made every shinobi on the battlefield instinctively shield their faces. 80,000 people looked up and saw death. Naruto looked up and saw a rock. He reached up, his palm met the meteor. The descent stopped. Not gradually, instantly. 2 kilometers of stone and iron and cosmic debris traveling at terminal velocity stopped dead against the palm of a teenager's hand. The impact, the force that should have ended the continent, was absorbed. Completely. Silently. Like catching a tennis ball, the meteor hung there, casting its shadow over the entire battlefield, the fire along its surface guttering, the stone cooling against Naruto's skin. He looked at it. He looked down at Madara. Interesting opener. Then he set it down, gently, to the side, the way you set a cup on a table when you're making room for something. The 2-kilometer meteor descended at a controlled rate and settled onto the empty battlefield to the east, making contact with the earth so softly that it didn't even raise dust. A meteor. Set down like a teacup, Madara stared. Then he laughed. It was a genuine laugh. Not cruel, not manic. The laugh of a warrior who had spent 100 years looking for someone worth fighting and had, possibly, found something better. Something beyond fighting. Something that made fighting feel as small as Madara had always secretly suspected it was. Wood released deep forest emergence. The earth erupted. Trees, massive, building-sized, the wood release that only Hashirama Senju had ever mastered, exploded from the ground in every direction. A forest born in seconds. Trunks the width of houses, canopy closing overhead, roots ripping through stone. The signature technique of the god of shinobi, the power that had founded Konoha, now weaponized in the hands of the man who had tried to destroy it. The forest rushed toward Naruto. Naruto walked into it. The trees bent around him, like the bone spikes in the forest, like the ash in the village. Reality didn't fight him, it accommodated him. The massive trunks curved, the roots diverted. The canopy opened above his head. He walked through Madara's legendary forest technique the way you walk through an open door. Madara saw this. His jaw tightened. Perfect Susanoo! The spectral warrior erupted from Madara's body, and this was not Sasuke's incomplete version, not Itachi's diseased projection. This was perfect Susanoo. A mountain-sized humanoid of blue chakra, 4 arms each holding a blade, a face like a war god, wings that could generate hurricanes. The largest, most powerful chakra construct any human had ever produced. Its sword swept down. A horizontal cleave that could have bisected a mountain range. The air split. The ground for a mile in every direction was carved apart by the shockwave alone. Naruto walked through the swing. The sword passed through him. Not around him. Through him. As if he existed in a state where physical contact was optional. The flames along the blade's edge went out as they passed his body, snuffed, like candles in a wind that wasn't there. Madara, inside his perfect Susanoo, felt something cold run through him. Limbo. Border jail. Shadow clones from the limbo dimension. Invisible, intangible, existing in a parallel plane that no dojutsu except the Rinnegan could perceive. 4 of them. 4 copies of Madara, each one with his full power, striking from a dimension that shouldn't have been accessible. They hit Naruto from all sides simultaneously. 4 perfect Susanoo-level punches from 4 invisible entities in 4 dimensions at the same time. Naruto sneezed. It was a small sneeze. Polite, the kind you do into your elbow. And the shockwave from it. Not a technique, not a release of power, just the involuntary expulsion of air from his nose. Rippled through every dimension simultaneously and dispersed the limbo clones like smoke in a hurricane. Gesundheit, Kurama said from inside Naruto's mind, deeply uncomfortable. Thank you. Madara dropped the Susanoo. He landed on the ground in front of Naruto, 20 meters away. His Rinnegan blazed. His hair whipped in non-existent wind. He was the most powerful human to have ever lived, and he knew it wasn't enough. The infinite Tsukuyomi, Madara said. The dream, the end of all suffering. He performed the hand seals. The Rinnegan's power pulsed upward, through the sky, through the atmosphere to the moon. The moon's surface lit up. The eye of the Sage of Six Paths carved into the lunar surface opened. Light poured down, silver, all-encompassing, a genjutsu cast on the entire world simultaneously. The infinite Tsukuyomi, the most powerful illusion in existence. A technique designed to trap every conscious mind on the planet in an eternal dream of their deepest desires. The light hit Naruto. He blinked. Was that supposed to do something? The genjutsu shattered, not broke, shattered, like glass hitting concrete. The silver light fractured into a million pieces, each one dissolving before it hit the ground. The moon's eye closed. The infinite Tsukuyomi, the technique Madara had spent 100 years engineering, lasted approximately 2 seconds before running into a mind that had no surface for illusions to attach to. You cannot trap the infinite in a dream. You cannot show someone their deepest desire when their capacity for desire is only 3 years old and still being developed. The technique tried to find Naruto's fantasy, his perfect world, the thing he wanted most, and found nothing to grab. Not emptiness, totality. A consciousness so vast that the genjutsu trying to encompass it was like a thimble trying to hold the Pacific. The Tsukuyomi broke, and everyone on the planet who had started to dream woke up. Madara stood in the aftermath. The moon dimmed, the technique was gone. His ultimate weapon, his century-long plan, his answer to the suffering of the world, broken by a teenager blinking. The Rinnegan in his eyes flickered. "What are you?" Madara whispered. Naruto looked at him. The blue eyes held something that, in a certain light, on this scorched and cratered battlefield, might have been compassion. "I have been asked that before," Naruto said. "I find the question more interesting than the answer." He stepped forward. Madara flinched. The greatest shinobi in history flinched from a step. "But I will tell you what I see when I look at you," Naruto continued. "I see a man who loved his brother, who lost his brother, who looked at the world that took his brother from him and decided the world was broken. You spent 100 years building a tool to fix it, a dream, an illusion, a world where no one loses anyone." Madara's face, the stone mask, the legend's composure cracked. "You think I'm wrong," Madara said. "I think you're right. The world is broken. People do suffer. Love is temporary. Everything you've said about the cruelty of existence is accurate." Naruto paused. "But replacing the world with a dream is not fixing it. It's giving up, and you are too interesting to give up." Naruto reached out. He touched Madara's forehead. Index finger. Gentle. The way Itachi touched Sasuke. The way a parent touches a child who is running a fever. Madara felt it immediately. The disease, the cellular degradation, the chakra corruption, the accumulated damage of 100 years of hatred eating him from the inside, began to dissolve. The pain that had been his constant companion, the fire in his bones, the weight in his chest, gone. Not suppressed, removed, erased at the molecular level by a being that found suffering interesting but unnecessary. Madara's eyes went wide. He hadn't been without pain in decades. He had forgotten what it felt like. The absence was so profound that it registered as its own kind of shock, a negative space, a void where agony had been, suddenly filled with nothing at all. He looked at Naruto with the Rinnegan and saw, for one blinding instant, the truth. Not the full truth, a fraction, a glimpse. Enough to understand that the boy standing in front of him was not a ninja, not a Jinchuriki, not a sage. He was the canvas on which reality was painted, choosing to stand inside his own artwork and talk to the figures. "You chose hatred because you were afraid that love would be taken from you again," Naruto said quietly. "You were right to be afraid. It would have been, but you should have chosen it anyway." Madara Uchiha, the legendary warrior, the founder of a clan, the man who had fought gods and refused to die and built an impossible plan to save a world he couldn't forgive, sat down on the scorched earth, in the middle of a battlefield, cross-legged, hands on his knees, like a child who had been walking too long and finally found a place to rest. He didn't speak, he just sat. And the greatest villain in shinobi history thought about a choice he'd made 100 years ago. And for the first time, he wondered if he'd made the wrong one. The war ended, not with a bang, with a man sitting down. The Allied forces stood in the quiet aftermath of a conflict that had been resolved in hours instead of years. Generals looked at each other. Medics packed their unused supplies. A logistics officer stared at his untouched emergency provisions. and wondered if he could get a refund. That night, in the vast, dimensionless space of Naruto's consciousness, the place that was bigger on the inside than all of reality was on the outside. Kurama sat in his corner. The corner had changed over the years. It used to look like a sewer because that's what Kurama expected. Now it looked like a forest. A dark, quiet, ancient forest with enormous trees and soft earth and a sky full of stars that moved in patterns that no real sky had ever produced. Naruto sat across from Kurama, cross-legged, blue eyes, no jumpsuit here, just a boy barefoot in the dark earth looking at a fox who was older than most civilizations. Kurama's 9 tails were curled around his body. His red eyes, usually sharp and fierce, were soft. He had spent 13 years inside this being. He had been the most powerful tailed beast. He had been feared and worshipped and sealed and weaponized across generations. Now he was a companion, and he was okay with that. Mostly. "You're changing," Kurama said. "Yes. You used to watch them like they were specimens. Now you watch them like..." He stopped. His tail shifted. "Like what?" Kurama's jaw worked. The greatest demon in the ninja world, the 9-tailed fox, the creature whose hatred had been so potent that its very chakra was poison, was trying to find a word for something he had never expected to see in the eyes of the being that contained him. "Like you're going to miss them." The silence that followed was the loudest thing in the mindscape. Stars moved overhead. The forest breathed. Somewhere far away in the physical world, Konoha was sleeping. "I think I already do," Naruto said. "And they're still here." Kurama's ears flattened, not in anger, in something he didn't have a name for. "Is that what desire feels like?" Naruto asked. The question was genuine. Open. The same tone he'd used 1,000 times when studying human behavior, but different now. Not academic. Personal. He wasn't asking what desire felt like in general. He was asking what this specific desire, the desire to hold on to something you know will end, felt like. Kurama was quiet for a long time. His tails uncurled, then recurled. He huffed, a sound that was half growl, half sigh, entirely Kurama. "I wouldn't know. I'm a fox." Naruto looked at him. "But probably yes," Kurama said. They sat together in the forest of the mind, the boy and the fox, the infinite and the ancient. Two beings who had both, in their own way, been alone for a very long time and had found against all odds that sitting together in the dark was better than sitting alone. "Thank you," Naruto said. "For what?" "For staying." Kurama's red eyes closed. His head rested on his front paws. "Couldn't leave if I wanted to. You ate me, remember?" "I remember. You tasted like anger and cinnamon." "I'm choosing to ignore that." The mindscape was quiet. Two beings resting. A boy who was learning what it meant to want something. A fox who was learning what it meant to be wanted. Outside, the world kept turning. As it always did. As it always would. Regardless of who was watching, morning came the way mornings do. Slowly and then all at once. The sun cleared the mountains east of Konoha. The light hit the Hokage monument first, washing over the stone faces in shades of gold and amber. Hashirama's calm brow. Tobirama's stern jaw. Hiruzen's gentle smile. Minato's determined eyes. Tsunade's fierce mouth. 6 faces carved in stone, watching over a village that had been destroyed and rebuilt more times than anyone wanted to count, and was doing it again. The village breathed. Hammers rang against nails. Fresh wood was being carried through the streets by construction teams that had been working since dawn. The smell of sawdust and stone dust and fresh paint mixed with the early morning air. Children, kids who had been evacuated during Pain's attack in the war, who had spent weeks in shelters playing cards and driving their parents insane, were already running through cleared streets, treating construction rubble as playground equipment. Tucci was open. He was always open. Ichiraku Ramen had survived the 9 Tails attack, the Chunin exam invasion, Pain's assault, and a world war. The stand's frame was new, built 2 days ago by a construction team that Tochi had bribed with free bowls. But the pot was the same. The recipe was the same. The stool was the same. Some things don't stop for war. Kakashi walked through the market district. He was reading his book. His hair was the same. His mask was the same. People recognized him and he waved back with the distracted warmth of a man who had spent his whole life pretending to be disconnected and had, somewhere in the last few years, accidentally become connected. He ducked behind his book when someone called his name too loudly. Sasuke walked the same streets, hands in pockets, destination unknown. He wasn't storming toward anything. He wasn't running from anything. He was just walking. Moving through a village, he tried to leave twice and been brought back to both times by a force that he was only now beginning to understand had nothing to do with power and everything to do with the stubborn, irrational, cosmically unfair reality that he belonged here. He passed a flower shop. Ino was inside, arguing with a customer about chrysanthemums. She saw him through the window and threw a flower at his head. He caught it without looking. Kept walking. Sakura was at the hospital. She was in an argument with a merchant who had brought his cart too close to the emergency entrance and was blocking ambulance access. She was winning. She was always winning these days. The girl who had buried her brilliance under a crush had excavated it, polished it, and now wielded it with the precision of a surgical instrument and the force of a sledgehammer. The merchant retreated. Hinata brought flowers to the memorial stone. She knelt. She arranged them carefully, white lilies, one for each name she'd come to pay respects to. Her hands were steady. Her Byakugan was off. She didn't need it today. Today was just about being here. Shikamaru was on a bench, watching clouds. Choji sat next to him, eating chips. They didn't talk. They didn't need to. Some friendships operate on a frequency where silence carries more data than speech. Neji was training. In the Hyuga compound, in the courtyard where he had once practiced the gentle fist with the weight of a seal on his forehead and the certainty of a cage around his future. The seal was gone. The courtyard was the same. But Neji was different. He moved through the forms with an ease that had nothing to do with destiny and everything to do with choice. Every strike was his. Every stance was chosen. He trained because he wanted to, not because a mark on his forehead told him to. Lee ran laps around the village. His weights clanked. He shouted encouragement to himself. A group of academy students ran behind him, trying to keep up, failing gloriously. Lee didn't slow down. He turned around and ran backward, giving them a thumbs up and a speech about the power of youth that was objectively ridiculous and subjectively the most motivating thing they'd hear all week. Tochi served ramen to a shinobi who looked like they hadn't slept in 3 days. The shinobi, a chunin, young, part of the reconstruction crew, sawdust in their hair and plaster on their hands, sat at the counter and ate with the slow, grateful, exhausted focus of someone who needed exactly this and nothing else. Long night? Tucci asked. 3 long nights. Extra pork, please. Tucci added extra pork. No charge, because some things don't stop for war and kindness is one of them. And above all of this, above the hammers and the children and the flowers and the ramen, sitting on the 4th Hokage's stone head with his legs dangling over the cliff, Naruto Uzumaki watched. He watched the village the way he had always watched things, with those blue eyes that contained more than blue, with a perception that registered every heartbeat and every conversation and every molecule of sawdust drifting in the morning light. He watched it all, simultaneously, in perfect detail. But something was different. He wasn't cataloging. He wasn't filing data. He wasn't observing behavior patterns or modeling social dynamics or analyzing the biochemical signatures of human emotion. He was just watching. The way you watch a sunset, not because you need to understand the refraction of light through atmospheric particles, but because it's beautiful and you don't want to miss it. A sound behind him. Footsteps on stone. The particular gait of a man he had known his entire life. Steady, measured, carrying the weight of a village and the lightness of a father who had somehow survived long enough to see his son grow up. Minato sat down beside him. The 4th Hokage, retired, technically, but still wearing the white coat, still carrying the presence, still the man whose face was carved into the mountain beneath them, settled onto the stone head that bore his own likeness and let his legs dangle over the edge. They looked at the village together. For a long time, neither spoke. The sounds of construction drifted up. A child laughed somewhere in the market district. A bird landed on Hashirama's stone nose and sang. Minato was 51. His blonde hair had streaks of gray. His blue eyes, the same blue as Naruto's, the same blue that Kushina had fallen in love with, were lined at the corners. He was aging. Every day, in small increments, The finite nature of his body was asserting itself against the will of a man who had once been the fastest ninja alive. He would die someday. Not today, not soon, but someday. The clock was running. It always had been. Naruto knew this. He had always known it. He knew exactly how many cells in Minato's body were dividing, how many were dying, how many years the actuarial tables would give him if he ate well and slept enough, and avoided the kind of stress that being the father of an omnipotent entity tends to generate. He knew, with the precision of a being who could perceive the quantum state of every atom in his father's body, exactly how much time they had left. The knowledge sat in his chest, not as data, as weight. The splinter had become something larger, a presence, a warmth, a heaviness that he recognized now as the thing he had spent his entire incarnation studying: love. The specific, terrible human kind. The kind that knows it will lose and chooses anyway. The kind that Minato had felt when he held a newborn while the Reaper death seal dissolved around him. The kind that Itachi had felt when he tapped Sasuke's forehead for the last time. The kind that Kushina had felt in 11 minutes. Naruto understood it now. Not academically. Not through observation. He felt it. Small and enormous and impossible and certain, sitting on a rock face next to a man who would not be here forever. "Are you happy?" Minato asked. The question was simple. The kind of question fathers ask on mornings like this, when the world is quiet and the light is right and it feels like maybe, just this once, an honest answer is possible. Naruto considered it. He thought about every moment. The ramen, thousands of bowls, each one a small communion with something warm and temporary and unreasonably delicious. Kakashi floating in space during the bell test, his expression locked in default face while his mind broke in 5 places. Neji's butterfly, rising from a broken seal into the sunlight, dissolving into freedom. Sasuke in the void, tears floating in the dark, saying no to a god's offer because his pride was bigger than his pain. Itachi's tea, cooling in 2 cups, and a man walking away for the last time. Pain's rebuilt village, the dead waking up, and the taste of an emergency ration bar that tasted like regret. Madara sitting in the dirt, free of pain for the first time in a century, thinking about a 100-year-old mistake. Kurama, red eyes closing, admitting something in the forest of the mind that he'd never admit in the waking world. Tochi sitting next to him at midnight because the kid always ate alone, and sometimes that's not okay. "I don't know if happy is something I can be," Naruto said. The words came slowly, not because he was uncertain, because he wanted them to be right. Because this conversation on this mountain with this person deserved precision of a different kind. Not the precision of omniscience, the precision of honesty. "But I think I am something better." Minato looked at him. "What's that?" Naruto looked at the village, at the people, at the life moving below them like a river, flowing constant, carrying things forward, never the same water twice. At Sakura winning an argument, at Sasuke catching a flower, at Hinata kneeling at a stone, at Kakashi hiding behind a book, at children running and builders building, and Tucci serving ramen to someone who needed it. "Invested," Naruto said. "I came here to understand desire, to study it, to catalog it." He paused. The morning air moved his hair. The white jumpsuit caught the light. "I did not expect to develop it." Minato waited. "I want to stay," Naruto said. "Not to study. Not because the data is interesting, because I want to be here." He said want, the way someone says a word for the first time in a language they're still learning. Carefully, with the weight of discovery behind it. Want, such a small word, such a human word. A word that the infinite had never needed because the infinite had everything, and you cannot want what you have, and you cannot have desire without lack, and lack was the one thing the Beyonder had never experienced until he chose to experience everything. He wanted this village and these people and this morning and this father and this life, not because they were interesting, not because they were data, because they were his. Minato looked at his son, this boy who was not entirely his son, this infinite being who had chosen to be his son, who had chosen all of this, the body, the village, the name, the jumpsuit, the ramen, the friends, who could leave at any moment and return to the everything that he had been before, who could exist in all times and all places and all possibilities simultaneously, and had chosen specifically and deliberately to exist here, on a mountain, in the morning, Next to a man with gray in his hair and a lifetime of fear and love and bewilderment in his heart, Minato felt something he could not name, except he could. It had a name. Everyone knew the name. It was the most common feeling in the world and the most profound. The pride of a parent watching their child choose to be alive. He put an arm around Naruto. Naruto, the Beyonder, the sum of all that exists outside existence, the being that had made death run away on the night of his birth, that had turned Orochimaru's ambitions to ash, that had caught meteors and dismissed gods and walked through dimensions like a man walking through rooms, leaned into it. He leaned into his father's arm the way a child leans into a parent, the way a small thing leans into a larger thing for comfort, even when the small thing is not small at all, even when the small thing is the largest thing that has ever existed. Because leaning in is not about size, it's about choice. It's about saying with your body, I am here and you are here, and that is enough. Below them, the village breathed, the sun climbed higher, the gold deepened, the shadows shortened, hammers kept ringing, children kept running, the ramen kept steaming, the world kept being the world, broken, beautiful, temporary, fierce, small, enormous, imperfect, alive. Naruto watched all of it. He had been everything. He had held universes in his hands. He had watched galaxies form and die like sparks from a fire. He had existed before existence had a name, before color, before time, before the concept of before. He had been complete, infinite, boundless. And in all of that, in the totality of everything that was and is and could be, he had never, not once, not anywhere felt anything as enormous as this. This small, temporary, imperfect morning. This village full of people who would die. This arm around his shoulders, warm, human, finite, this. The sun cleared the mountains completely. Konoha lit up gold. Every surface, every building, every face washed in light so warm it looked like the world was blushing. Naruto smiled, not the small, uncertain, almost human smile from the Valley of the End, not the curious smile he gave his enemies, not the academic smile he wore when studying something new, a real one, whole, present, complete, a being who had finally, after an eternity of everything, found the one thing the infinite could never produce on its own. Somewhere to be, something to lose, someone to sit next to on a carved stone face in the morning light. He was not human. He would never be human. The thing behind his eyes, the white vastness, the everything, the beyonder, would always be there. He would always be more than a boy, more than a ninja, more than any category this world or any world could construct. But for the first time in all of forever, he was home. The universe watched. The universe had always watched. It was, after all, the thing that watched. That was its job, its nature, its sole eternal function, to contain and to witness and to keep turning regardless of what happened inside it. But this time, watching Naruto Uzumaki lean against his father's arm in the morning sun of a rebuilt village, surrounded by the sounds of hammers and children and ramen and life, the universe felt something too. If infinite things can feel anything at all, and maybe just this once they can.
An omnipotent being learned what it means to want something, and he did it eating ramen at midnight. Poetic, unhinged, perfect. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and tell me what moment broke you the hardest. I already know. It was the pillow thing.